see by the dawn's early light was so proudly we hailed at the twilight's past gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular upon spur, singing out, yeah, through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Welcome to Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show. Presented by the Barn Dominion Company and Resto Pros of the Midlands. Part of the Chief Sports Network. Go Gamecocks!
He'll be fire on the mountain.
Consecutive home runs for Carolina.
It is good. It's gone.
He's in. Touchdown. Williams with the throw to the cup.
He's going to score. It's a walk-off.
Touchdown, South Carolina.
All right. Greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home inside the Gamecocks, the morning show built by the Barndo Co. and presented by our friends at Resto Pros. There when you need them. Resto Pros of the Midlands, Resto Pros Midlands SC.com. The Barndo Co. builds dream homes all across the Carolinas and in Georgia and in Tennessee. And you can build your dream home today by calling one of the nation's best builders. They are Gamecock owned and they are Gamecock operated, and we sure are glad to be partnered with them and thankful for all that they do. If you've got a piece of land or something like that and you want to build something pretty sweet, head to the barndoco.com and you can do just that. I promise you it's not just me today. I assure you Phil will be in here in just a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes, and then we'll be joined at 10:20 by the voice of Carolina basketball and baseball, Derek Scott. They are set to take the trek to the Bluegrass. Carolina baseball looking for their second consecutive series win. And we'll talk to him about that, the walk-off that happened the other night against North Florida, and the series victory last weekend over Ole Miss, and some hoops recruiting as well. Football recruiting, as far as the portal goes, is picking up. Of course, it's also picking up on the high school side of things. And so we'll keep our eyes on that. Yesterday, they did get defensive end George Wilson. And then coming up at 11 o'clock today, one of my favorite people, the great GA Mangus, will be in to talk some ball And we'll go back in time a little bit to when he was on staff at South Carolina and some of those draft classes. He was obviously there when the 2013 class was drafted, which is one of the record classes that we have referenced around here. Gamecocks looking to break that record this year if they can, beginning tonight at 8 o'clock when the NFL draft starts on ESPN from beautiful Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm sure it's nice up there this time of year. But GA got to South Carolina in 2009, which was at that time their in numbers their largest draft class ever. Now they had 7, and then just a few years later in 2013 they had 7 more. And so if South Carolina can eclipse that, it would certainly be a record. But the Tennessee Titans are on the clock, and they're expected to take Cam Ward this evening. The interesting thing, if you've been following along outside of South Carolina, and I got a bunch of stuff on the Gamecocks and kind of waiting to hear some things from some sources as well, on maybe some names that aren't or have not been as popular or discussed lately. But if you've been following the latest, draft predictions and mock drafts and all the stuff that's floating around out there from ESPN to CBS to PFF to these individual websites, et cetera, the one thing that has been standing out is Shedeur Sanders. Just maybe not even a week ago and less, he was seen by many as kind of a surefire pick at number 2 or at number 3. And then this morning, as I started kind of doing my homework on this thing, and again, we'll talk more about this throughout the program, and I'll ask GA a little bit about it because he knows how to evaluate quarterbacks. The latest that's out there, CBS has it, ESPN has it, is Sanders coming all the way down towards the middle to the late first round, potentially landing in Pittsburgh at number 21 overall. And if that's the case, I know ESPN doesn't have Jackson Dart getting into the first round as it is right now. But there are still some projections with Jackson Dart sneaking up in there, and CBS is one of them, and they've got him going above Sanders to the New York Giants at number 18. So the over-under at quarterbacks in the first round still stands at about 2.5. The question is, where does Sanders fall, and how far does Jackson Dart rise? So that's going to be probably, I would imagine, once you start really paying attention to coverage, which is clearly already started and will begin heating up a little bit later on today, that's going to be one of the main storylines in this deal this evening as to who takes Sanders and does somebody take Jackson Dart in the first round. So it's pretty incredible. Nick Emmanwori continues to be projected in the first round by most projections out there. And if he does go that high, he will end up as the 17th all-time first-round draft pick for South Carolina football. Now, interestingly enough here, the 4.0 mock draft on CBS this morning does not have Nick Emmanwori going in the first round. Everybody else has got him going, but they don't have him going in the first round. And there have been a couple of others that have got him very, very early in the second. I think intel inside the building right now in Columbia tells you that they believe he will go in the first round. He could go as high as number 15 or 16. And, of course, he could go all the way down to as low as 30 or 31. But the Gamecocks continue to think that he is going to be a first-round draft pick tonight. And he would also be the 10th defensive player to ever go in the first round. There's, as the 16 right now is divided 9 and 7 offensive guys that have gone and 9 defensive guys that have been drafted out of that group. So that would make, obviously it would make 10. The other notable thing for South Carolina in the draft is how many will they get in the first 3 rounds tonight through the weekend. And Emmanwori, they're all defensive guys right now, as we know. Emmanwori, TJ Sanders, Kyle Kennard, and Demetrius Knight are the 4 guys that everybody is keeping a close eye on. First round, second round, third round. The last time that the Gamecock football program had 4 players go in the top 3 rounds was 23 years ago, 2002, and they were all on the defensive side of the football. Willie Alford went, Andre Goodman went, Sheldon Brown went, and edge or defensive end at the time, Kalimba Edwards. Those were the 4 guys that made it into the top 3 rounds. The last time that 4 defensive players went in one draft for South Carolina was 2012. Stephon Gilmore, Melvin Ingram, Antonio Allen, and Travian Robertson, who, of course, is the defensive line coach now for the Gamecocks. If South Carolina can get a 5th player drafted off of the defensive side of the football in this draft, I mean, who could it be? O'Donnell Fortune? Could it be Tonka Hemingway? Could it be Bam Martin Scott? You know, we'll wait and find out. I mean, could somebody else sneak in there late? Who knows? But that would give them 5. And if they do that, the last time that 5 defensive players went in one draft, I already mentioned the year. It was 2002. In addition to Kalimba Edwards, Sheldon Brown, Andre Goodman, and Willie Alford, John Stamper went late in that draft as well back in 2002. A couple of other notes that we've dug up here on this year's NFL draft class for South Carolina. If Rocket Sanders comes off the board in the next 72 hours or so, 72 plus hours, believe it or not, he would be the 20th running back in the Common Era since 1960, taken out of the University of South Carolina. Now, not the 20th running back, but the 20th running back taken in the draft. And there are guys who have played running back at South Carolina who have signed free agent deals and played in the league. One of them is quite notable today. He just got signed not long ago by the Carolina Panthers, and that's Rico Dowdle, who went for over 1,000 yards last year with the Dallas Cowboys. But just a few years ago, Rico Dowdle wasn't drafted. He was an undrafted free agent. So Rocket would make the 20th running back taken in, I guess that'd be the last 65 years or so in the NFL draft. Another note that hasn't really been brought up is Nicky Manwari in playing the safety position. While a lot of Gamecock fans and folks who followed the program over the years have wanted to call South Carolina DBU, which is fine. That kind of encompasses corners and safeties and everything in between. Nicky Manwari could be the highest safety ever taken from the University of South Carolina, which is kind of hard to believe because there's been a lot of great safeties around here. He would also be the first true safety to go in the draft since everybody's favorite player, DJ Swearinger, back in 2012. This would be, it's hard to even imagine that. I couldn't believe it when I was doing the research that Nicky Manwari could be the first true safety since DJ Swearinger to go, which would be now 13 years removed from that. A couple of other things to pass along here. Once Manwari's name comes off the board and everybody else behind him, this will be the 23rd out of the last 24 drafts that a Gamecock football player has gone. Only once in that span did it not happen. It really wasn't that long ago. It was 2017. No players came off the board there. And then finally, want to make sure we give Shane Beamer a bunch of credit here. If you compare removing the year that he was hired, all right, removing the year that Shane Beamer was hired. So we're going to go back to the 24 class, the 23 class, and the 22 class. The 21 class was only a few months after he was signed on to be the next head football coach of the Gamecocks. He's had 12 players go in the NFL draft. Last year, Leggett, Spencer Rattler, Marcellus Dial, and Nick Gargiulo was selected by the Broncos in the 7th round. The 23 class had Cam Smith go in the 2nd round. Zach Pickens went in the 3rd round to Chicago. Darius Rush, Javon Gwynn in the 7th, and remember, Jalen Brooks was a late take by the Cowboys as the 244th overall pick in the 7th round of that 23 draft. in the 22 draft, J.J. Enagbari, Kevin Harris, and Nick Muse went in the 7th round that year as well. Those were 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders. So not including the 21 class, which was headlined by first-round draft pick J.C. Horn, who's now the highest-paid corner in NFL history. You compare those 12 to the first 3 draft classes of Steve Spurrier. Again, eliminating the 2005 class because that was only a few months after he was hired. He never really coached those guys. Troy Williamson, Rod Wilson, the linebacker, who just won a Super Bowl won a Super Bowl 2 and 3 years ago with the Chiefs. And Darryl Shropshire went that year to the Falcons in the 7th round. Steve Spurrier's first 3 years, there were only 5 names that came off the board as Gamecock football players: the 06 draft, the 07 draft, and the 08 draft. Co Simpson went in the 4th round. Jonathan Joseph was a first-round draft pick in 2006 of the Cincinnati Bengals. In 2007, Fred Bennett, of course, went in the 4th round. And Sidney Rice went that year in the 2nd round to Minnesota. Corey Boyd was the lone draft pick in 2008. And it was in the 7th round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was it that year. South Carolina's running back, Corey Boyd. So 5 players. So Coach Beamer was 7 more than Steve. And if you add up the first 3 years of Lou Holtz and Steve Spurrier at 12, that's Shane Beamer. Lou Holtz had 7 guys that went, not including the 1999 draft, 2000, 2001, and 2002. John Abraham and Arturo Freeman went in 2000. And in 2002, Kalimba Edwards, Sheldon Brown, Andre Goodman, Willie Alford, and John Stamper, as I mentioned earlier. Nobody went in the 2001 draft. That's it. So Shane Beamer has made his mark in his first 3 years as the head football coach here as far as putting guys into the NFL, which is pretty fantastic. So we'll see what happens starting tonight, expecting to hear and hoping to hear Nick Emanwari's name. He is the 2nd-ranked safety in the draft, and we've got numbers on all of the guys that are being considered to go. And then a bunch of guys who weren't invited to the combine, guys like Dale Von Campbell, Debo Williams, Gilbert Edmond, Kamar Bell, Vershawn Lee. Could they find their Juju? Could they find their way onto an NFL roster potentially as a undrafted free agent, or could one of those guys like Boogie Huntley, sneak into the back end of this deal by the end of the weekend? So we'll see, but we got a bunch of stuff to get to on that. So that's some draft history to kind of lead things off here today. Again, it's an 8 o'clock start tonight officially is when the clock will begin on ESPN, but coverage began about 6 months ago, and I hope you've all been enjoying that. Our coverage of the draft and of Gamecock baseball, basketball, and all athletics today is brought to you by Gamecock Traditions, GamecockTraditions.com, where you can order your Carolina gear and have it sent right to your doorstep. You can also go see them in the Midlands. They are also now the home of the Rybo hats. If you're looking at the hat that I've got on and you're wondering what is that, it's not for sale yet publicly, but I got it in the mail yesterday thanks to Ryan, who owns Rybo, and you can go to rybocarolina.com. These are the new Braves hats. See the feathers? They are sweet, and they fit perfectly, and I can't thank them enough. I'm going to wear this thing to death, and hopefully they'll send me another one. Rybo, if you head to rybocarolina.com, or you can go to Gamecock Traditions and get your Rybo Gamecock hats as well, garnet, black, white, whatever it may be. Make sure that you check them out, GamecockTraditions.com. We will step aside. GA Mangus will lead us off at 11 o'clock this morning in the 2nd hour, but coming up here in just a couple of minutes is our good buddy Derek Scott. We'll get into some Gamecock baseball and some hoops with him as well, right here on the morning show inside the Gamecocks, built by the Barn Co.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting: hydraulic disc brakes, a torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever, and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lesson today with former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
The season rolls on at Love Chevrolet, where the inventory is overflowing and the deals are in full bloom. Rev up your spring with Love's exclusive specials on Suburbans, Tahoes, Silverados, the entire lineup of award-winning Chevys on the lot now and ready to go. Spring-tacular savings at Love Chevrolet. We're talking the best selection of new Chevys, the lowest price, guaranteed. In fact, they'll beat any competitor's price or give you $1,000. The other dealers upsell, overcharge, and will say most anything to get the sale. At Love Chevrolet, satisfied customers do all the talking, and they say things like helpful, honest, and fun. Your trusted hometown Chevy dealer since 1961, Love Chevrolet. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Get along down the road. We got a long, long way to go. Scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give love the upper hand. Paint a wall, learn to dance. Call your mom, buy a boat, drink a beer, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all get along?
All right. It is almost 10:25, and it is draft day here inside the Gamecocks The Morning Show. We're joined by the voice of Carolina baseball and basketball, the great Derek Scott, who's on the way home from, I think, Atlanta, right, Derek?
That is correct.
Do you have the sunroof open, or is it just look open?
No, it's open. Oh, no, it's not open. No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I've got the it's showing. I can see through it, but it is not open. I wouldn't do that to you. I respect audio too much.
No, it's okay. It's all good. We've all been through audio issues, Derek. I understand totally, man. Are you a draft guy? Do you dial in for this thing?
I use crazy. When I was young, I grew up in that era when the draft became a thing. And back then, of course, it was when ESPN first started televising it. I was, probably early teens, maybe not even that. May have been more like 10 or 11 years old. And I would skip school that day to stay home and watch it. I just loved it. I thought it was the coolest stuff ever. I tell you why. I got hooked early because one of the first years that it was televised, this would have been, I want to say 1980. The only guy who ever made it big from my little tiny small hometown was a high first round draft choice. And so everyone there was so excited to see where he was going that, we got the clearance to skip school that morning and watch the draft. And so then once we did it, me and a couple buddies realized, oh man, this is fun. And we just continued to do it every year. My mother caught hell because she was a school teacher and she allowed her son to skip school to watch the NFL draft. And at that point in the existence of sports television, that was not understood to be an acceptable thing by a lot of other teachers. But I stuck with it. and did it every year. Was actually kind of aggravated when I was in college and they moved it to a Saturday thing. To me, it was always about the hardcore people that were willing to skip work or skip school because they loved watching the draft that much.
Who are you referencing? The player from West Virginia?
His name was Kurt Warner, not quarterback. He was a running back. He went to Penn State, won a national championship. He was the star running back on top when Todd Blackledge was the quarterback. They beat Herschel Walker in the national championship game, and he was I think he was picked maybe 3rd overall by the Seattle Seahawks. He was AFC Rookie of the Year. Tore his knee up in I think his 2nd year. Came back, had a couple more good years, but back then the rehab from ACL wasn't the same. You were never going to be the same back that you were pre-knee injury. And so he had probably a 5 or 6 year real solid NFL career. But his first couple of years, his first year, he had a great rookie season. The Seahawks shocked the world, went to the AFC Championship game with Jim Zorn slinging it. And yeah, that's been a while ago, but he was the one guy from my tiny little town that made it big. And so we were all obviously living vicariously through him all throughout his years at Penn State and then in the NFL.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. On the topic of I brought you on to talk about Carolina baseball and some hoops, but on the topic of quarterbacks, this is probably the most interesting quarterback draft situation we've had in a while, because you've got the one surefire dude. We know Cam Ward is going to go number 1, or at least that's what it looks like. But now Shadur Sanders is falling all the way down. There's some guys that have him out of the first round, and then they're trying to figure out whether Jackson Dart's going to get into the first round. Those are the only 3 names that are even being considered right now. So I don't know what happens. I know we go back 1 year and we were all focused on what was going to happen with Spencer Rattler, and that was pretty cool. And I got a feeling if you fast forward 1 year around here, we're all going to be focused on Lenore Sellers and where he might end up going in the NFL draft. But this year is very ho-hum for that position.
Well, I grew up a huge Washington Redskins fan, still a huge fan of that franchise. And so I am so fortunate that they were looking for a QB last year, not this year. Because last year there were dudes, and this year I'm not sure there's any dudes. I'm not even sold that Cam Ward is a dude. Certainly not on the level that the guys who were being taken 1 and 2 last year were. And man, that's the crazy part of it is just, do you catch the draft break you need to be picking highly the year that the guys are elite? Because it's not a given that it's going to be that way every year at a particular position. And obviously people will reach on quarterbacks all the time because you can't win without, an elite quarterback. And just seeing what Jaden Daniels did for Washington as a rookie proves that. I mean, they've been through more quarterbacks than I've been through Under Armour shirts since I've been in Columbia. And it's just ridiculous to see how much easier it looked this year with a dude at quarterback instead of the revolving door of non-dudes that I've been forced to watch for 20 years.
That's a good point. If you go back, I did this the other day and we'll move on, but if you actually go back the last 25 years and go look at all the quarterbacks who have gone in the first round and the number of what you would consider a bust. I don't love that term because I'm not so sure that it's always the quarterback's fault. I feel like some of these guys kind of get thrown into it, expected to be magicians, and they just can't be. Even Tom Brady spoke out about this not long ago. He was like, look, what we're doing to some of these young guys is ridiculous. We're not teaching them how to play the position at that level. But you go back and look at a bunch of the guys who, flung it around in college. I mean, guys like Sam Bradford, for instance, great last name, obviously, but things didn't necessarily work out the way that I think a lot of people thought they would in the NFL as the number 1 overall pick. And, what are the reasons for that? I don't know. There's probably a bunch of them. But anyways, we'll see what happens. Draft coverage began about 6 months ago, and tonight they will put them on the clock finally at 8 o'clock. All right, South Carolina baseball is going to get on the road and head to the Bluegrass of Kentucky, where the last time they went, they were swept. But before that, they did win the last 2 series up there, including a sweep. And luckily, they built a new ballpark, or everybody would be miserable. Derek, it was a different vibe last week coming off of the trip to College Station. They gave up 40 runs. They walked and hit 33 guys. I mean, it was we don't need to go back and reimagine everything that happened down there. It was brutal, as we know. And then Ole Miss comes to town, and Ole Miss has never won a series at South Carolina, and they still haven't won a series at South Carolina. And really, at the end of the day, it came down to pitching. The games, Carolina's won 4 of 5 games, including midweeks. And in those wins, they've thrown 69% strikes. And in the one loss, they threw 55% strikes, Derek. And that's just kind of the way that they have to win. But they are off the schneid as far as SEC series go, and they got a chance to get a little streak going this weekend.
Absolutely. And it was so, long past due to see that kind of quality starting pitching stacked up back-to-back days, man. And it's, when you see it, it's like, wow, we remember what this was like. You remember what it's like to be dictating terms in at-bats instead of just not knowing, whether you could avoid giving away free bases over and over again and putting yourself behind the 8 ball like that. And the frustrating part was going into Sunday, you were set up with a chance to sweep. You had the pitching staff, you had the bullpen availability, you had all the pieces. But, Coach Maneri when we met that morning to record the pregame interview, he was just sick because he had tossed and turned all night on whether or not to give the ball to Dylan Eskew, whether or not he thought Dylan felt well enough to pitch, trying to read between the lines on what Dylan was telling him as far as how he felt, whether the kid was really feeling better or whether he was just trying to tough it out for the team. And ultimately he made the decision that he didn't feel confident, that he was really in a good spot. And he went in a different direction, and Jarvis just didn't have it. And, Jarvis, I thought going in, I'm thinking Eskew, one time through the order with Eskew, one time through the order with Jarvis. And then you got Sweeney stacked up in the back end and some other guys that are relatively fresh. I loved what we had on paper there, but it just goes to show you it doesn't matter if you don't go out and execute pitches. And so you still win a series, but that missed opportunity to get a sweep was certainly noticeable because you thought you were going to be in a pretty good spot to compete in that game. But now you go into Kentucky, and the question is, will it travel? How do you perform on the road? As you said, new stadium, AstroTurf. They've built the team to fit the ballpark. They play the most, unique style of anybody in the league. They're going to bunt. They're going to steal bases. They get hit by pitch more than anybody on the planet. And I'm real curious to see what that looks like in person. Is that something that you notice as far as efforting to be hit by pitches, or is it just something that is, for some reason, materializing at a rate that seems hard to fathom? And how do you deal with that run game and managing that run game? You go back opening weekend of conference play, we heard a lot about Oklahoma running at will, and the Gamecocks controlled the run game. It was never a factor, but you get the impression this will be a little bit of a different challenge than the way Kentucky goes about it.
Yeah, what Derek is referencing is, we hit on some of this yesterday. It is a startling number, the HBPs, and this is every game, because I'm not just going to throw SEC stats at this. If you're a team that prioritizes getting hit by a pitch, you prioritize it day in and day out. This is a little bit different from strikeouts and things like that. They've been hit 110 times this year in 38 games, and I'm with you, Derek. I don't know if they're standing on top of the plate or I don't know. I don't know. Did they take away the inner half and they just focus on the outer half? When you try to come in, you're going to get – I don't know what they do. I've watched a little bit of them, but it's hard to really tell from TV. So I'll be anxious to hear you and Stuart talk about it tomorrow night and get your eyeballs on it right there front and center. And then when they get on, they've stolen 91 bases this year in 110 attempts. I mean, that's lightning. And South Carolina – I felt like earlier in the year, on that topic, let's talk about that, because Gavin Braylon is the catcher now. He's number one for South Carolina. Earlier in the season, that was a major concern, which was controlling the run game. I feel like lately, both the pitchers and the catchers have actually done a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, much better. And when you talk to Stu tomorrow, he'll be a better equipped to explain the numbers. He's done it for so many years as a coach. He keeps that stopwatch in the press box with us, and he's watching how close, how fast pitchers are getting rid of the baseball. What is their time to the plate? And he can tell you who's good and who's maybe more susceptible to be run on. And as I recall, he's always felt really good about Brandon Stone in that regard. It's not necessarily about how good your move to first base. For some guys it is. For some guys the pickoff move is a weapon. For others it's about how quickly do you get the ball to the plate to give your catcher a chance to maybe discourage the other team from running. Well, if you look at Kentucky's numbers, what I want to know is, are they going to be discouraged by any particular time, or are they just running hell-bent for leather regardless until you prove to them that you can throw them out? In other words, does it then shift back on to Gavin Braylon if Stone or some of these other arms are giving him the quicker delivery and setting him up to have a better chance to throw out runners? Is he still going to have to prove that he can do it? Because I felt like Oklahoma didn't really attempt to run because the time to the plate was so good by the pitchers. And then, if you recall, that was the Talmadge LeCroy was playing that weekend, and Tal had a couple of really nice back picks. He threw some guys out at first base. So, what are you doing? What are you going to have to do to prove to the opposition that they can't run on you? Tennessee Saturday guy last week, it was insanity. I mean, it was the first 2-3 innings of the game. It didn't matter who was on base. They were going. And Tennessee couldn't do anything about it. And it really shifted the momentum in that series.
Well, Paul Mainieri says something often that he's dead on about. It's pretty simple. They can't run if they're not on base.
Exactly.
If you don't let them get to first or second or anywhere else, they can't steal bases. So obviously that's going to be, priority number one. You mentioned their style, and actually, before I even go into that, because I'm getting to the staff here, have you heard anything? I'm assuming we're going to get an update today on Dylan Eskew, but have you heard anything at all?
Not, but again, I didn't even do the broadcast Tuesday. I've been in LA on business since Tuesday morning, so I am disconnected at a level that I usually would not be. But, Dylan thought he was ready to go last Saturday. So my expectation is that he will absolutely be ready to go. But certainly, the final word on that comes from Paul Mainieri this afternoon at the media session, and when Ken Riker puts out the game notes and releases the pitching plans, the weekend rotation. My expectation is Dylan will be a part of that. It won't be a TBD, but I don't know that. That's really something we're all going to learn together here in a couple hours.
Okay. On the reason that I asked that is because on that point, clearly Jake McCoy last week had his best and I thought most important start of the year. But if you bookend the weekend with Brandon Stone and Dylan Eskew, who are guys who kind of more sinker ballers who like to keep the ball down in the zone. If you get one up and someone gives up a solo home run here or there, that's not going to hurt you. And we saw that last Thursday with Brandon Stone. He threw two bad pitches in that game, two. One of them was a little bit of a cheapie. The other one was not. But they didn't come back to bite them. So if they're able to keep the ball on the ground, good things happen at South Carolina. And part of that reason, you mentioned the bunts and stuff like that for the Wildcats, and they like to try to do some funky stuff and put some pressure on the defense. I'm going to knock on wood and hope that I don't do anything to jinx this here. But South Carolina has been stellar defensively, in particular in SEC play. They're fielding it at a 984 clip.
Yeah.
And you talk about the infield guys. I mean, I think Kazmar's gotten very comfortable. Coach Mainieri spoke a couple of weeks ago about him bringing his heels off of the edge of the grass, playing a little bit more in the dirt, which isn't ideal. But, if that makes you better, it makes you better. Carry on for the most part this year has really been pretty darn good over at second. and those guys are turning double plays very fluidly. And then you talk about your corner guys, and they're both young, and they're elite corner guys. I mean, they really are. KJ Scobie is an elite third baseman, and Bo Hollins is as well over at first. So if the ball's on the ground and they're bunting and things like that, I almost feel like, Derek, this might be actually playing into the hands of the Gamecocks because they do those things pretty well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if Kentucky is going to play the way they've been playing, which no reason to think they won't, they will be squaring to bunt a bunch. And as far as coming to get the baseball and making plays on the run, I'll sign up for 3 days of KJ Scobie on AstroTurf every day of the week. You remember the last time we were there, you mentioned that we got swept. If you remember, infield defense was the number one problem. We had guys who, other than Braylon Wimmer, didn't look like they were ready for the speed of the AstroTurf. I don't anticipate that problem with any of these guys. Kazmar had played at a ton of AstroTurf fields when he was at Ohio State. In fact, you know, when he was scuffling early this year and had a couple games where he made some errors, that's one thing Paul Maneri told me was, he goes, I think he's struggling a little bit because you can't count on consistent bounces on dirt and grass like you do on turf. And he's just spent so many years not having to get low because you're going to get that big bounce off the AstroTurf, and he has to get used to this, which he has. But in this instance, you're returning to his, quote, roots. He'll be playing closer to home than he has all year. He'll be playing on turf. And then my only question is, okay, how's the hamstring? Is it going to affect his range, his mobility at all since they kept him out of the game on Tuesday night? Same thing. I wasn't there, so I can't speak to the severity of the injury. But I'm hoping that was more of just a cautious, hey, it's a Tuesday game with North Florida. Let's focus on being ready to go Friday in SEC play.
You are listening to the grand voice of Carolina baseball, Derek Scott. They will hit the road for Lexington, Kentucky. Series begins tomorrow night. Derek, I know you, as you mentioned, you weren't there Tuesday for the North Florida game, and I know that they obviously really struggled until the 10th inning on KJ Scobie's ground rule double with runners in scoring position. Matter of fact, they didn't have a hit all game with runners in scoring position. But all of that aside, you've been a part of a lot of walk-offs as the voice of South Carolina baseball. You've seen a bunch of them over the years. Coming off of a series win, regardless of who the competition was in the midweek, I don't think there's been a walk-off for South Carolina this year until the other night.
Correct.
Just having that moment where your team is able to truly get out there and just enjoy and celebrate and jump around and dump water and take your shirts off. In your experience of being around these guys, what can that do for a program, especially one that maybe is trying to turn the corner right now?
Well, let's start with the obvious answer. It beats the alternative. You don't want to be on the receiving end of one of those. So when you get to do one, when you get to celebrate a walk-off win, that's obviously the best case scenario for a late game extra inning scenario. But the upside to it is also, and Stewart had talked about this for a few weeks. He felt like this team needed a game like that where you do get to celebrate. And if you do it on the heels of having finally won an SEC series, I like to think this stuff starts to stack up a little bit. You kind of compound the good vibes, and then you go on the road and you have a chance to test it out. And the one thing you got to take into account with this team is, they went on the road on the opening game of a series against Mississippi State, and State had and has an absolute ace. So they've done that before. I feel like, that this isn't going to be a scenario tomorrow night that they haven't already faced and seen success in. It's really just a matter of, can you perform? How do you execute? And how Kentucky is playing. Because right now, boy, the Wildcats are red hot. They've gone from kind of a bubble team in most people's thoughts of the NCAA tournament to now a surefire 2 seed. And, you've got a very impressive series win against the Vols on the road. And then they just kind of stuck it to Louisville on Tuesday night, which that's a big time rivalry in a midweek game. So that they're feeling really good about themselves right now too.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And once again, maybe it'll be a little bit different this weekend, but once again, South Carolina runs into a team that really was kind of a little unsure of who they were, like A&M. And just like A&M, Kentucky's coming off of a series victory over Tennessee, and you're hoping that doesn't translate. But we'll see. South Carolina, again, as Derek pointed out, and we've pointed out around here, is also coming off of a series win against the Ole Miss Rebels. So you got a couple of teams playing for a lot this weekend. If the Gamecocks, and we have minimized this conversation around here a lot lately because it's just not needed at this point in time. It's more about just winning games. If they can find a way to get the series this weekend, you can begin to open that door a little bit more to, okay, all right, that's 2 in a row. Can we continue to do this thing here and have a chance at the end of the year to be where you want to be, which is in the postseason? But again, they got to go win this weekend. All right, Derek, real quick, I want to hit on just a couple of quick basketball things with you. Not anything, too detailed. I'm not going to go that far, but they obviously are still in the portal. They're still reconstructing this roster. And then, of course, last week we got the news that the Eagle staff kid, even though he'd already signed, had asked to get out of that deal. They let him out of it. He's off to your home state of West Virginia to go play for the Mountaineers. But, I don't know if you've spoken to Lamont or Carey or any of the staff or anything like that recently. But this is the frustration with this whole portal thing. It's not exclusive to South Carolina. It's happening all across the country. But this is the frustration. You got to go to the portal. You got kids who go in the portal. Then you got to go find kids in the portal. And then you get kids who you sign. And then for whatever reason, may it be financial or family or just a bad feeling or whatever it is, they decide, well, we're not going to do that. And then all these other guys maybe that you told no because you signed this kid. Now you got to go back to the drawing board. The experience for these coaches with this thing has just got to be at an all-time frustration, all-time high from a frustration level standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know how these guys do it. It is so foreign to what they grew up with as players and coaches in this game to be trying to really ascertain when you can count on a kid to be a part of your program and when you don't know. We all say it, but the NCAA's got to figure this out. They have got to get some sort of restrictions in place. I don't know what the answers are. I mean, I know what I'd like for them to be, but I seem to be told on every scenario that you come up with that, well, that'll never withstand a court of law. The lawsuits, the guys who make their living in court cases, they are feasting on all of this. And that's the frustrating part is there's more leverage in being an agent and an attorney right now than there is in being a coach or a player. And that's not good for the game. That's not good for the game at all. It's just very, very hard to get your head around what's real and what's not. I was this past couple days with a guy who's pretty close to the Kentucky program, and all the hubbub is how much money they are spending this year in the portal. He says the numbers aren't real. He says what you're seeing thrown out there, that's not legit. There's a lot of exaggeration going on. I don't think anybody really knows, and that's the hard part about this is understanding what you can really count on, what your strategy can be in terms of securing players. Gamecocks went the route that I think everyone would like to go. They identified a guy early. They put all of their focus on that young man. They secured his commitment. They worked out a financial deal. He signed paperwork. Next thing you know, none of that matters. He's gone. People have asked me repeatedly, what happened? What went wrong? I said, I don't know that anything went wrong. I think, I've been told that as much as anything right now, it's the fact that this house settlement didn't take place as quickly as some people thought it might, and that it created a longer runway for this portal period, and that folks that committed early decided, well, maybe that wasn't a great idea. Maybe there's more panic and more desperation out there, and we can take advantage of that to get a bigger payday than what we already agreed to. And so, I mean, how as a coach, how are you supposed to really, manage a program if the rules are that there are no rules? I don't know. I don't envy LP or anybody on his staff right now trying to figure that out. I mean, they were given a boost in the budget this year in terms of year over year definite improvements, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you got a blank checkbook and you can't go out there and compete for guys that are being pursued by folks that you tend to believe have deeper pockets. So you still have to make very smart choices. And when you make one of those and it works out, and then suddenly the rug gets pulled out from under you, that's just hard to fathom.
Well, I think that's the frustrating part is I don't care how much money you've got. You could have all the money in the world to offer these guys, and if they sign a piece of paper that says they're coming, but that paper holds no water in court, essentially, it doesn't matter. I mean, money aside, at some point in time, when you sign your name on the dotted line, it needs to go back to what it used to mean, which is, no, you're ours. And this is our decision. I saw that the Iamaleava kid, the brother who was at Arkansas, who's decided, he's going to head out to UCLA. Arkansas is saying, yeah, that's fine. You owe some money. And, basically a buyout is what they're throwing into this. Derek, we're getting into contract talk, but and that's probably
but honestly, Jamie, that's the one point I wanted to make is that for the folks who are out there, and there are plenty of them that believe this is all awesome, that the kids deserve whatever they can get, and if you don't agree with that, then you're not being fair to the kids, and they want to compare it to the coaches who leave for other jobs. The big difference there is if a coach leaves, he's paying a buyout. He's not walking away scot-free unless somehow the school was dumb enough to negotiate a contract where there was no buyout. And that's not typically going to be the case. But that's what's going on with the players. There is, by and large, there's been no accountability to when you leave. If you're in an NIL agreement and you walk away from that, right now, by and large, there's no buyouts, no repercussions. So for NILs, for the collectives that are out there who are still in existence, I would hope that's what you're putting in your deals. And I hope that you're going to then, absolutely hold people accountable. And maybe the whole Iamaleava mess has been a tipping point where folks start feeling like they're not the bad guy if they do that. Because I think a larger percentage of the public would support you than maybe you realize. If just because Jay Billis and some talking heads in the media want to believe that makes you the bad guy, doesn't mean that's the public feeling about those situations. And hopefully you'll see more people that will have that language in their deals. And if it happens, then they do hold you accountable in a similar manner.
I think that's spot on. And that's the way of the world. I mean, if Derek goes to Lexington this weekend and informs South Carolina he's going to just stay there and be the voice of Kentucky, that ain't going to go very well. Somebody's going to have a problem with something because they're signing your paycheck. So, yeah, it's crazy. All right. Have you been working on Sharav jumps? You've been working on this?
On what? No,
Mike?
Of course not. He's Big Mike to me, man. He's going to be Big Mike.
Okay.
At least in the short term.
Now, I was thinking, I was laughing the other day. I was looking at him, Doko and Sharav jumps. I was like, oh, poor Derek. He's got to get
No, man. Hey, it's just like you and I are both rattling off Iamaleava. When that kid first popped on the scene, nobody knew how to say his name. So it's just repetition. It's all reps.
Well, you're a pro. We did the research though and discovered that his father was the Mongolian shark. So that's a really neat tie into all this.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. And that's the fun part is when you get these new faces, you can figure out who they are and what they're all about, what their history is. And what's frustrating right now is that we're having to do it for 10 guys every season.
Yeah. That's a good point. One of those new guys is not new to South Carolina. That's Michi Johnson. I saw his post on Twitter yesterday. Yep. And I don't know if anything will ever, probably won't and probably shouldn't ever surface publicly on, what really transpired and as to why he went back to Columbus and those things. But one thing is absolutely 1,000,000% certain. There's a reason why he's back at South Carolina. And the core reason is his relationship with Lamont Paris. That never dissipated. It never nothing. It was always strong and solid. And I'm just so glad to see him back and see when I saw that, the feeling that went through me with everything he's been through in his life. I know that family's been through a lot, Derek, as all families go through, but he's been through a lot, trying to balance it all. I have a really good feeling that Meechie Johnson is just going to be something special this year for South Carolina, and I hope that's true.
You know, it's funny. I saw those photos that were posted, and the first tweet I saw was from Sonny Johnson, who's Meechie's uncle and a high school coach up there. And Sonny's a guy who I called his games at Ohio University back in the day. And when Meechie first locked in to come to South Carolina the first time, I remember having that conversation with him and telling him it was crazy how much I thought he looked like his uncle. And he just laughed because he most, it is, people tell you look like someone, you're like, no, I don't. But I always saw a very strong resemblance between Sonny and Meechie. But Meechie has a lot more quickness. But no, Sonny was a big time baller in Cleveland when he was coming up, and now coaches up there. And seeing Sonny and LP together in that photo has brought a smile to my face. And then seeing Meechie posting something later with him in there with them both. I think we're all excited to have Meechie back. Hated that he wasn't here last year. Right, there will always be that what if, what this team could have been with Meechie in the lineup alongside Colin Murray Boyles this past season. I think that final wins and losses record would have looked pretty drastically different. But we are happy to have him back this year, and he's going to carry a lot of the weight, man. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton, and I know he's looking forward to that opportunity.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. There's no doubt about it. Well, Derek, safe travels down I-20. I'm assuming you got to get on an airplane in a little while and just fly right up to Lexington too, right?
Yep, heading home, changing the suitcase out, and then headed to the airport. So it's going to be a travel day, but that's all right. Looking forward to getting up to the Bluegrass, get out and see the folks at Keeneland tomorrow, and then be ready for some baseball tomorrow evening.
Well, we are ready for baseball too. It's a 6:15 airtime tomorrow night on the Gamecocks Sports Network. If it's local, it's 107.5 The Game, 98.9, and things like that in Charleston. But wherever you are, you just pull up the Gamecocks app. It is very easy. You just click Listen Live, and there's Derek and Stu right there giving you peanut jokes and facts and all types of stuff for 9 innings. It's the best broadcast in college baseball. I'll stand on that, no doubt about it. Derek, thank you, buddy. Great to see you. We'll check in with you next week, hopefully after another series win for Carolina.
Sounds good, JB. Take care.
Yeah, man. Thank you. There you go. Derek Scott, the voice of Gamecock baseball and basketball. We need to step aside. We're powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston. Going to need a lot of power in hour 2. GA Mangus joins us next.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Dry Space Crawl Space Solutions. Basement crawl space encapsulation designed for your specific needs. Your crawl space can be susceptible to all sorts of issues, including moisture buildup, mold growth, and structural damage if not cared for properly. Let our trained experts provide basement crawl space encapsulation solutions to protect your home, improve air quality, and enhance energy efficiency. Schedule your consultation today for a safer, healthier space at dryspacecs.com. Dry Space Crawl Space Solutions, proud supporters of your South Carolina Gamecocks.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks! Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple, delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com. Man, that's good.
Fans, Club Chief has arrived. Become a Big Chief Club member or a Big Chief Club Golden Gear member for exclusive access to our Nana's Porch chat box on Inside the Gamecocks The Show. Plus, you'll get access to our VIP tailgates, prize drawings, merch, and much more. A portion of your monthly membership goes to the Garnet Trust, supporting NIL at the University of South Carolina. Pull up your Chief Sports app and join on the home page. Thank you so much for being a member of Club Chief, and we look forward to meeting many of you very soon.
This is my dirt.
Welcome back to Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show. Presented by the Barndominium Company and Bresto Pros of the Midlands. Hour 2 starts now.
Yeah, I'd hate to be the first to sell. This is my dirt, these are my fields, where I harvest what I plant. That little pond, I catch bluegill. I built that barn with my 2 hands, where I raise my babies, a piece of me. Now this ain't just a piece of land. The money be great, but I can't part ways with a life that works. You can't put a greenback dollar on what it's worth. This is my...
It is the final hour Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show, brought to you by Palm Casual, palmcasual.com. We got another car rider today. Derek is on I-20. Where are you at, Coach?
I'm getting ready to jump on I-20, and I'm headed to the tree farm and play golf for the next 3 days. Y'all always catch me when I'm headed to a good golf trip.
That's by design. We want to check in on your game and how you're playing. You playing all right?
Yeah, I'm playing pretty good. That's almost chopped my finger off about a month ago, and so I had a little bit of a time with that, and I remember out at Spring Valley, but it's healed up pretty good. I think I only clipped 1 or 2 nerves, so I'm getting there.
How do I dare ask how you almost cut your finger off?
I was making a smoothie and cutting through frozen ice, and we have bad knives in our house, so the girls got me new knives for Christmas. I'm sick and tired of listening to me complain about it, and I sliced through the ice and almost cut my index finger off on my ring finger on my left hand. So, but it's all good. It happens. It happens. But my brother-in-law is a member out here at Tree Farm, and we won the member guest up at his place in New Jersey. So he's my Yankee brother-in-law coming down here to South Cackalack. And we are the 2020 Matita Conch member guest champions. And so I get on his trips on occasion. So he's one of those guys that's violating the 14 club rule. He's members. I think he's up to maybe 15 clubs now, something like that. He's one of those guys, but I like him, and so we're gonna have a good time.
Well, I hope y'all win. I'm glad to hear you like your brother-in-law. That's all. It's tough when you don't.
Nah, we're tight. We got 8 of us on the trip here, so it's a combination of guys from Chichester and Matita Conch. He brought me and his foot doctor buddy from Gettysburg College. They went to college together and played hoops together. So we're gonna have a good little time out here for a few days.
Now I saw Coach Spurrier's playing in the Chick-fil-A tournament again this year. How's he play? Have you talked to him? Have you played around with him in a while?
No, I sent him a text. He just had his birthday on Sunday. So I shot him a text for his birthday on 4/20. And, I haven't played golf with him in a while. I missed him the last time he was up here. He and Jerry were up, I guess, back during the holidays, and I missed him. I was traveling with my family during the holidays, so I missed him. But, I don't know how he's playing. I do know he's playing that Chick-fil-A, and I talked to James Speronis. They're playing in the Outback Bowl deal in the summer. So, I guess he's still trying to play a bunch, and good for him. So I'm happy with you guys. Hello.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting: hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever, and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lessons today with former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
The season rolls on at Love Chevrolet, where the inventory is overflowing and the deals are in full bloom. Rev up your spring with Love's exclusive specials on Suburbans, Tahoes, Silverados, the entire lineup of award-winning Chevys on the lot now and ready to go. Spring-tacular savings at Love Chevrolet. We're talking the best selection of new Chevys, the lowest price, guaranteed. In fact, they'll beat any competitor's price or give you $1,000. The other dealers upsell, overcharge, and will say most anything to get the sale. At Love Chevrolet, satisfied customers do all the talking. And they say things like helpful, honest, and fun. Your trusted hometown Chevy dealer since 1961, Love Chevrolet. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Mike here for my good friend Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. Let's face it, it's been a rough go for mortgage rates the last couple of years. And now more than ever, you need someone on your side to get you the very best possible rate on a new mortgage or a refi. That's where Troy comes in. 27 years of experience working for you. Conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, rehabilitation loans, all doable with my man Troy Branham of Golden Gate Mortgage. And when I say doable, I mean the best possible rate that's out there. It's a phone call that can literally save you thousands of dollars. 803-238-0111. 803-238-0111. You can also check out the website ggmortgage.com.
What up?
What is going on, man?
Not a whole lot. I can vouch for Troy Branham too. He did my mortgage.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, Mike Morgan will be happy with that. That's his client. But when I move back to Columbia and we're neighbors, dude, I'll call him. He'll do mine too. So
yeah, absolutely.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, Jamie Bradford lost power. For those that are wondering why I'm here, JC Sherbert on Inside the Gamecocks The Morning Show. GA Mangus is our guest. Always good to catch up with GA. I don't know what you and Jamie talked about because I was writing an article when I got the text. But NFL
we were talking about golf. I'm headed to a golf trip out here at the tree farm, so we were just chatting. Hadn't started into the football yet.
Yeah, you know what's interesting though, GA? Like my wife, you've met her. Probably not into the golfing like we are from the South because you can't play but 3 months a year. But she actually went from I would never be interested in going to the Masters after watching Rory and the drama. She went from that to when are we going to go? So that was pretty interesting. So at my house, we're back into golf. Yeah. I was just gotta love technology, right? Well, so the draft's tonight, and first of all, as a quarterback guy, give me your honest take on the whole Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders thing from your perspective. I have my opinion. I think it lines up with the rest of the people. I like Ward much better, but what do you think?
With who?
Cam Ward and Cameron Ward. Yeah, your thoughts.
They're both good players and had moments. I don't. If I had the first pick in the draft, I wouldn't take either one of them personally. But I still think those guys have to develop I mean, I think you sit there and see where Anthony Richardson went a couple of years ago in the top 5 and came out of nowhere. And matter of fact, it might have been on this show. I said, does anybody watch tape? I wonder where, these guys go to combines, they do this, and then all of a sudden they vault up. And if Anthony, in my opinion, he's an ultra talented young man, but he wasn't ready to go be a starting quarterback in professional football. And I think we've seen that. He's still developing. So I think these guys, they're both, can they be good players down the road? Sure, I do. But I don't know that you're looking at anybody in this draft that you're taking. I think there's a lot of guys that if you have a pretty good quarterback that may be aging, you take them, let them sit and learn a little bit, a la Aaron Rodgers back in his day. And then hopefully they develop a little bit more and they're ready to go play. But that's not what they want to hear. That's not what people want to hear. People that have bad quarterbacks, they want to go get another quarterback and try it. So I think Cam's probably, physically, he appears to me in the little bit I got to watch Miami, he's a little bit more physically probably ready. Although, Shador did have his number retired with a 13-12 record. So, you got that going for you.
Dude, I'm like, man, the number, nobody's wearing that number again. There's 64 Colorado Buffaloes that have been all conference, all Big 12, that have worn that number through the history of their program.
Yeah.
How about that, dude?
It's quite a world we live in, brother. It's quite a world, but it's I think Darian Hagan, wasn't he the quarterback in '90 when they split the Natty with Georgia Tech? I don't think his number's retired. I think he was 28-5. So
yeah. I remember Darian Hagan. He took over for Sal Nessie. You remember that story? Sal died.
I do. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Bill McCartney. I mean, I was kind of a Colorado guy. No offense to Coach Holtz, but I was hoping they'd beat Notre Dame that year, and they did finally. But I also didn't like the fact they didn't give it to Georgia Tech, GA, because Georgia Tech didn't have a loss. And
I agree.
Colorado had a loss and a tie and a 5th down at Missouri to win.
Yes, they did. Well, and as a growing up a Georgia Tech fan, I watched a lot of bad football when I was a kid growing up in Marietta, and that was Bobby Ross and Friedgen and all those guys. They did a heck of a job at Georgia Tech to get that thing to even be in the mention for a national title is insane with some of the stuff I watched in the late 70s and 80s growing up.
No doubt. Sean Jones, quarterback there, and I remember Virginia was really good that year. And Virginia was like number 1 in the country. Tech went up there and beat them on a last-minute field goal in Charlottesville and ruined their dreams, and Tech ended up being the team. They just couldn't. Yep. They tied North Carolina for whatever reason. One of Mac Brown's early teams, and couldn't get it done. So Steve Spurrier, when he was here, when you guys were there, 34 guys drafted. I think that's the record for a coaching tenure, and he coached 10.5 years, so that's probably accurate. I think tonight or the next 3 days, Carolina could have more guys drafted than ever. They could get double digits, actually. When you were recruiting, after you had a 6-7-man draft class and stars and guys you could point to as an assistant, how much does that help in recruiting? Because I think it helps quite a bit. I think it's all these kids want to go to the NFL. They see that, they're like, oh yeah. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it did. How it pertains to it today versus say 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't know how that necessarily equates. Because guys now it's back 15 years ago, guys wanted to go where they could get developed and then go to the NFL to make money. Well, now it's all the money coming out of high school is what's important versus going to the NFL. So I don't know if it's quite as important. And that's just my opinion. I'm just a high school football coach, man.
Yeah. Speaking of,
I just don't think the kids' priority is about the NFL anymore coming out of high school. Now the development still matters, because ultimately, if you're a first, second round pick, and we had a bunch of those, back in the day, and that's when you're making, generational money, right? And that's not going to happen necessarily with the NIL and the college, and now the whatever they're calling it now with the revenue sharing, I guess, for lack of a better term. But development still matters. So, I think that there's definitely, you don't want to be the guy that doesn't have guys going to the NFL. But there's also guys that I respect in coaching that are doing it at small levels, mid-major levels, and they're developing the guys that end up now leaving their programs and going playing for the big boys because of money. So, they can't be going for what they're considering developmental, because they're getting developed. When you see these Division II, 1AA guys end up signing with Power 5 programs for more money, then they're getting developed at smaller levels as well. And then those guys don't get the credit, but that's okay. Nobody cares. Guys that grew up cutting their teeth at small college football, we don't care about that stuff. We're in it to develop kids, and if somebody else wants to take the credit because they gave them $100,000, then so be it. They're the ones that got to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, not me.
I always think that the best football coaches are at that level, because you don't really out-recruit people. You have to outsmart people in recruiting and then develop, like you said, and then you got to coach on game day. That's why I thought Kalen DeBoer was such a good coach. 66-3 at Sioux Falls means more to me than what he did at Washington.
No doubt.
So, all right, high school quarterbacks, you mentioned that. So there are a lot of them that are a hot mess right now, including Nico. This Malachi Nelson kid's been at SC, couldn't win the job at Boise, goes to UTEP. I think he plays, has now abandoned the UTEP Miners, right, to get in the portal and make more money. Jaden Rashada still hasn't signed anywhere, right? The $13 million guy at Florida.
Yep.
All right, so let's say you had the resources. What's the true – I mean, let me rephrase. How many guys really have you seen in your career out of high school that would be worth stupid money? And $13 million for anybody's ridiculous. But how many guys straight out of high school would you go, yeah, man, got to get him, big-time difference maker, can step in and do it right away? Because you were a development guy. Look at what you did with Dylan Thompson. I mean, look at the Vandy game in 2012 versus the end. I mean, that's a year. I mean, that's proven. So you know the development process and how hard it is. How many ballpark in your career do you think would even be worth investing that kind of dough in straight out of high school?
Well, I would invest in guys that are like Connor and Dylan that I knew were going to put in the time and the effort to develop. Had the skills, but they were at different stages of careers. But both had the want to. And that was always what whether I was around in the NIL era or whether I want to be around in the NIL era, I don't. None of that matters to me. I like to develop players. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. That's what we're doing over at Apex NFL Prep Combine with our business over there. We got 9 guys we just trained, and I see those guys acting professional. Those are the guys I would invest in, and we talk to them about all that stuff. Connor and Dylan were guys I talked to them just like I talked to. Your Garcias and guys that I had at small college. Those guys were all of the same. They were all of the same cloth. They were all cut from the same cloth. They wanted to work. Some others than others were a little bit more into it. But in terms of investing, I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around that. Like Jalen Rashada, I watched that tape, okay? And listen, he might be the nicest kid in the world. I don't know him from Adam's house cat. I could care less. all I do is look at the tape and decide. And I don't know whether the 13 million number, where the hell that, everybody loves that 13 number when you're talking about money, and don't even get me started, because I'm just a conspiracy theory guy that coaches football. But $13 million for a guy that's tape, he's average at best. And I don't care what he did at some combine or whatever. I watched him. I wouldn't give him 13 cents. But he's still looking for a place to go play football right now. And 13, you have to be, you got to be kidding me. And so that stuff, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm looking forward to this draft. I think we prepped some guys good. We had a running back out of UNLV, Kylan James from Arkansas. That was a Central Arkansas kid.
Yeah.
Jumped in the portal, transferred to UNLV. And he went out to pro day, and we trained him for 2 months. And he went out to pro day and ran a 4.41 and a 4.43, and caught the ball at 226 pounds. And so we're looking forward to kids like him and our wide receiver from App State, who is just a wonderful kid, team captain up there. So we're even gearing in that prep of the same way when I used to try to recruit players. That have that that have that stuff, and to me, that's what you invest in.
Outstanding, yeah, that's awesome. That you, I love that kid from UNLV, man. I'm a closet UNLV fan.
Yeah, so, he has got a chance to be really, really good. I think pound for pound, he's in the upper percentile. He didn't get invited to Indianapolis, but at his weight, pound for pound, and speed, and his shuttle times and all that, he is in the upper. He's in the upper echelon of the running backs coming out after the kid at Boise.
Yeah, he's got good hands too. I think the 3 down back, things like that.
That's good. He played wide receiver at Central Arkansas. He began caught 45 balls as a freshman. So he's natural and just I'm a big fan. Really good player.
You know the most famous Central Arkansas alum, don't you? Of course you do.
Charlie Strong? No, he's
one of them. He's one of them. Scottie Pippen.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh man, we have a younger audience now, GA. So I try to.
That's true.
Explain to these guys how great the '90s were. Final question for you. So, if you were training Lenore Sellers, what are some things like getting him ready for the NFL? And you've seen him play, obviously. I think the guy is rare. He's a rare dude, but there's a lot to work on. So, what kind of tips would you give him? I mean, what do you think? Just talk to me about your opinion about his game right now.
Big fan in high school, and he reminds me. He's the kind of guy that I like to invest in because he's still not even remotely close to the ceiling. He is, everybody sees the athleticism and all that, but then you see some of the, when I thought Illinois did a really good job of keeping him in the pocket, kind of making him, if you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me throwing the football, and I thought that was a good plan because nobody really had done quite the job that they did, or really had that plan, or at least it seemed. But he was new. Now everybody's got 10 games of tape on him. So what kind of strides as a passer and really add that in, because he's already obviously a dual threat guy, and has the ability, and he can spin it and all the things the young kids love. He can really spin it. But can he sit in there when his feet get taken away and make that throw? Really think with him, his development, what I see, what I would do with him and work hard on is his lower body and having it fit with everything, with above the waist, because above the waist, he's really good. He seems like a sharp kid. I don't know him personally, but I really like what I see. But his lower body, when those balls sail and or they go into the ground, it's a fundamental issue with his lower body that I see. And again, I'm just one guy that coaches quarterbacks and enjoys doing it. And when the body and the upper body and the coiling and uncoiling of the upper and the lower are together, with his obvious ability of natural arm strength and the ability to spin it, I really think he has it in him to become a good passer. Right now, I wouldn't consider him a great passer of the football. He can throw it and he can spin it, but there's a difference between being a passer where everything's catchable, where everything's in front of a guy if he's running on a horizontal, path, West Coast style, overs, digs, flats, things where, there's still too many balls that are on hips and not out in front where guys. So you gotta help a wide receiver at times, and those are things that I've seen him get a little better at, but I do think he's gonna get better. And when he gets that down, and just that becoming a passer, touch is included in that. But I think the majority of it, the trigger of it, is his lower body, and he's a guy. He's been my kind of guy since high school. I mean, I would love to coach him. I think he's. I think those. He's that dual threat guy, but has the ability to really spin it and push the ball down the field. And he's big. He's physical. I mean, he's got every tool that you want. And he's just a guy that continues to need a little development. And I look forward to seeing that happen to him. And I think the young man's got a really, really bright future. Gamecocks are in a good spot with their quarterback position right now, I think.
Absolutely, man. I learned something there, so I appreciate that. I learned the lower body. I need to start paying attention to that more. That's good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the footwork and all that, footwork and base and all that fitting together with the upper. It's got to happen to be an elite passer, an accurate passer.
Gotcha. All right, GA, man, shoot them good, buddy. Appreciate you joining us, and good to see you. Surprisingly enough today.
Yeah. Tell JB hello. Tell him to get his. He's young enough. He ought to be getting that technology. I mean, hell, if I can do it driving down the road to play golf, he ought to be able to not lose power.
Hey, no doubt, man. Hey, we'll talk to you soon, GA.
All right, boys. Yeah, y'all be good. See you, buddy.
That was the great GA Mangus joining us here on Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show, talking quarterbacks, NFL draft, all that. I'm JC Sherbert. If you're just tuning in, JB's power went out. The home studio, brother and sisters out there. Not sure what exactly we'll talk about, but hopefully Phil will be back. Phil also has some things going on today domestically, but we'll see what he's getting his air conditioning fixed. Man, I feel lucky today. There were some thunderstorms. I did a load of laundry, I guess. But anyway, Nana Sports chat box looks rocking and rolling. Just get in here and answer a couple of questions real quick, because I don't know where Phil's at and if we can go to break yet or not. I think we've already been to break once this hour. Bruin says he'll take over. Bruin is all involved in Gamecock Twitter. Interesting place to be the last few days. I'm not going to do that. Booting JEK right away, man. Matt mentions he needs to stop getting away with non-member comments on the show. Yeah, and Matt, I'll take responsibility for that. I'm not really being fair to you guys to doing that. So, sometimes though, it's just something. Sometimes I can't help but to respond because it's kind of something I don't really agree with, and or sometimes it's part of the conversation. But you're right. I'll be better about that. I mean, that's not his fault. That's my fault. So, Clint talking about 1990s Colorado, Darian Hagan and Eric Bieniemy ran the option to perfection. Yeah, those were fun football teams, and that's why I've always said. I mean, Colorado was kind of in the tank. They made a mistake going to the Pac-12, unlike Nebraska, who is, suckling on the hose cash in the Big Ten. They actually had a chance to do something about it and went back. And I think that's a great move for them. Whether you like Coach Prime, don't like Coach Prime, don't like Shadur or whatever, I like their fans, and I love their mascot, Ralphie. And it's good to see them relevant again. They did win one Pac-12 division title under Mike McIntyre when he was there. But it's the thing with Colorado too. They've made some just atrociously bad hires. Starting, they had Rick Neuheisel there, and he was doing well. And Dan Hawkins was not the right Boise State coach to take. And then, John Embry was a disaster. It's just they hired Carl Durrell, who had been at UCLA. So I don't. Their administration. We sometimes around here grumble sometimes about this guy getting hired or that guy getting hired, but go look at how Colorado football has evolved to the point where they did hire Prime. But it's good to see them back. Clint was a huge Colorado fan back then too. Now I'm with GA on Georgia Tech because I've always liked Georgia Tech too. So I was, I guess I was pulling for Colorado to beat Notre Dame. But I didn't understand why, with one loss, one tie, and then a fifth down that clearly should not have happened. Otherwise, they don't win at Missouri, and it's a moot point. Why the AP voters would vote Colorado over an undefeated Georgia Tech team? I just didn't get that. Maybe they're talking ACC. Georgia Tech's schedule was not as hard or something like that. So I don't know. I don't know. That and the Michigan 97 vote soured me on the Associated Press poll. I just don't think. And now, especially when you look at who's actually voting in that thing, you're like, that guy last year from Akron or wherever, a blatant Ohio State SEC hating homer, blatantly would downgrade. And we're supposed to look at that poll and say that it matters when you have people like that. Clearly, I don't know. So that's sort of crazy. Krager chimed in and said, totally agree with the lower body. He's going to play that course. GA is going to play is incredible. I didn't catch that. And Matt mentions that seems in line with what Shula wants for him. Yeah, Mike Shula. And Lenoris has even said it when they ask what do you need to work on. He talks about footwork and things like that. That's an important thing. Fundamentals are important with anything you do in sports. And so fundamentally, that needs to be cleaned up. But there's a lot of redshirt freshman quarterbacks that have to clean things up here and there. So that's it there. So Phil, I just got a message from Phil. He's dealing with the air conditioner guy. Lance goes from the Nano Sports chat box. All I know is the pride of 843 shall always prevail. So I heard the opener of the show and Jamie talking about Beamer and the era here. And if Nick Emanwari gets drafted tonight, he will have more players drafted in his first 4 drafts. This is draft number 4 because, I think the coach that coaches the players gets credit for the draft, just to be honest. He doesn't get, you can't say Beamer had JC Horn drafted and Izzy McWamu and that last class under Muschamp. And so I was kind of, sketching it out and all that good stuff. And they're right. And I think new coaches, even though they inherit someone else's players they recruited, they had to coach them. And these days, they also had to get them to stay and not hit the portal. So there's something to be said about keeping guys around as well. I think Muschamp deserves and Muschamp's going to have more recruits drafted in this draft. And I've said this since the start. Will Muschamp, despite the record in 2020, he left the program roster-wise in much better shape than Steve Spurrier did. That's unfortunate, but that's just those are just facts. It was the draft after Muschamp's second year, 2018, before Carolina had a player taken. That was Hayden Hurst, and there was only one. And then it got better in 19, 20, 21. But, right away, the 2022 draft, 3 players, JJ Enikbare, Kevin Harris, Nick Muse. 2 were high school recruits by Muschamp. 1 was a transfer from William and Mary by Muschamp. It's kind of funny. Everybody, and this was before the portal, so a lot of fans have settled down, but people were livid about Nick Muse because he came from William and Mary and livid about Jalen Brooks because he came from Wingate. Both those guys got drafted. And so I think that's interesting. 2023 class that Beamer coached, and the Gator Bowl team: Cam Smith, Zach Pickens, Darius Rush, Jovan Gwynn, and Jalen Brooks, all drafted. 4 high school recruits from Muschamp, 1 transfer. 2024, this is when the portal starts to kind of kick in. Xavier Leggett, Muschamp recruit out of high school, first rounder. Spencer Rattler was a Beamer guy from the portal. Marcellus Dial committed to Muschamp. They placed him there, but Beamer signed him out of Georgia Military, so Beamer gets credit for that one. But he was a JUCO transfer from Woodruff, South Carolina. And then Nick Gargiulo was a portal guy, so half the draft class last year was from the portal. A lot of these guys, too, were South Carolina high school recruits, and many of them were not rated very highly. So, I think there's something to be said for that as well. But Steve Spurrier, in his first 4 drafts, and Spurrier did inherit some guys that got drafted from Holtz. I mean, Jonathan Joseph, Co Simpson, guys like that. But there were some holes in that roster early too. And that's usually what produces your early draft numbers in a coaching tenure. Spurrier had 34 guys drafted in his career, like we talked about with GA. But his first 4 drafts had 12. So right now, Beamer and Spurrier are kind of tied, but the first one that gets drafted, somebody will get drafted. So he's going to pass the head ball coach on that as well. Curious to see what the number ends up, though, and this is honest, because I do believe the transfer portal has helped this program. So curious to do the numbers when it comes to portal guys drafted versus high school guys. Not that there's one, I mean, there's no right or wrong, right, for any of it. But because a lot, does Kyle Kennard get drafted on day 2 or drafted at all if he doesn't come to South Carolina and develop in a year? There's a lot of questions there. But I'm curious to see the numbers when this draft is done with Beamer to make sure that to see how many high school guys, how many portal guys, all that good stuff. And guess what? We have JB back.
Dude. I just tell you, hey, thanks for jumping in. We literally, they're doing work outside the neighborhood. So I don't know what this happened the other day, but it was brief. This was what, a half hour? With Coach.
Yeah, I went probably about 25 minutes, and he was in the car. Great conversation as always with GA. Just picked his brain about, talked a little Lenore Sellers, talked a little how much are these transfer quarterbacks worth. He had some great things to say about Jaden Rashada, who still hasn't found a home. And then I noticed Malachi Nelson, who was also in that class, big hot shot. I think some people called him generational as well. And all these are like West Coast guys too, JB. It's interesting. There's more drama with them, I guess. But Rashada has still not found a home. And then Malachi Nelson, who goes from SC Southern Cal to Boise, could not win the job at Boise. Whatever Johnny 2-star they had beat him out.
Yeah.
And then and really that job wasn't that hard. All you had to do is hand the ball to Ashton Jeanty this year. And so he goes to UTEP and I guess plays. And now first trade out of El Paso, boy, back in the portal here one day before it closes. Whoever is advising some of these guys, I think and whoever pays him to come to their school at the Power 4 level is desperate.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I wouldn't give him, like GA said, he wouldn't give Jaden Rashada 13 cents, much less 13 million. So,
I think it's always interesting. Obviously, we know Coach Mangus pretty well, but I think that in general in college athletics, the fact that there are major, incredibly successful coaches in football, basketball, baseball, who have gotten out of the sport and they see it from the other side Now I get it. You know, they've made their money. They've kind of run their course. They're like, yeah, maybe some of it's not that bad. I just don't feel like dealing with it. And financially, I don't need to. So I'm going to move on. But for whatever reason, there's a segment of the population that just disregards a lot of what the best we've ever seen have to say about it. And that drives me nuts. I mean, guys like Coach K and Nick Saban, you almost get called, you almost get picked on if you take a stand against a lot of the things that are going on. And I'm like, what? Like, how could somebody listen to these people talk about some of this? And because it doesn't agree with their free for all mentality of just give them whatever they want, they're on the wrong side of it. It's to me, I think that's humorous.
I think a lot. Yeah, that's why I have a lot of respect for the way Shane Beamer does it, for the way Kirby Smart does it, and everybody's going to get mad, but for the way Dabo does it, there are a smattering of coaches who are winning, who are doing it the right way. But some, I think a lot of good coaches in general are kind of paranoid. I think a lot of the blue bloods, because of the way that it's worked for them through the years before we had portal and NIL, they're just used to going and rounding up top prospects, and hell, if a third of them don't work out, they either get processed or they're your special teams guys, and then a third of them do. And if you make them miserable, they can't leave without sitting out, and that's just the way those programs have operated. And so I think there's a certain fear factor there that, well, wait a minute, we're not, if we don't pay and keep doing this. I think what people don't understand is it's just like the draft, man. I mean, you mentioned earlier, I did catch this part of your show, how many quarterbacks through the years have been drafted that are god awful.
Yeah.
And in football's different than the other sports because so much is between the ears and in the chest. And some guys, I don't care how athletically talented they are, they just don't want any. They don't want to they either don't like the collisions that happen at a higher rate of speed. They don't want to put in the work that it takes to play at the next level. They can't mentally process it in a position like quarterback or other positions. You're gambling every single time, regardless of anything, when you evaluate a football player that's going up a level. It's been proven. It's a fact.
Yeah.
So instead of being smart, like saying, okay, we've won for all these years by being who we are and just naturally attracting all these players. So instead of clinging to that, I think the blue bloods that are going to get through this pretty well, because I don't buy the fact that we're in for just blue blood domination from here. I mean, there are going to be some that sink. I think the good programs will still be the good programs, Jamie, but I think some are going to sink in this new era because they make mistakes. Because they don't have, like Georgia, for example, I think is doing smart things under Kirby Smart. And here's why. Because every year they lose 25 players to the transfer portal because of entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
Because these guys all came in hot shot recruits. Watch Georgia's recruiting and see if they don't maybe start taking more of the Lad McConkeys of the world.
Yeah.
And more developmental type guys, maybe more in-state guys. Just keep an eye on that. Because that's, what I hear out of Athens, it was a pretty frustrating spring. Kirby's got a young team full of big-time recruits, but, there's more to it than that in football. So I think that's part of what we see out there with all the ridiculous spending by certain programs is fear by the established ones. And then with like a Texas Tech who has a tech bro that sold his business for billions of dollars, they're just paying out all they can while they can to gear up to make the big runs immediate. It's more of a quick fix kind of thing, before all this hopefully gets capped or regulated to some extent.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, that's one of the things that I think is exciting about the future of South Carolina football too. Number one, you mentioned the in-state thing for Georgia. That has long been a proven model of success here at South Carolina. If the Gamecocks are good, generally they've recruited the state well. And if they don't recruit the state well, it usually translates. You'll see out there on the field. The other thing, though, you pointed this out a bunch with the portal, is that in the Shane Beamer era, they clearly this year have lost a couple of guys to the portal. Emory Floyd, Wendell Gregory, who I think a lot of us agree had a pretty high ceiling. He's off to Oklahoma State, and we thought he had a chance. But the numbers for the Gamecocks, as far as like how many of their blue chip, they just lost Cam Pringle. That's probably the biggest one when it comes to like blue chip guys that they've actually lost to the portal is very, very low. And so the model in which they're working inside of that building, Shane and his staff, Darren, whoever, to be able to get guys and bring them in, and they're mostly finding the guys that are the right fit. And you really know that based on the transfer numbers as far as how many guys. Now, they go take guys in the portal. There's no doubt about that. But as far as like, are you having, like, I had a college coach recently tell me that the transfer portal is a very honest evaluation of head coaches, especially it'll kind of divide it, good head coaches and bad head coaches. And there's a lot that goes into what makes a good head coach and a bad head coach, on the field, how you treat players, et cetera, et cetera. But if you start seeing a bunch of your high-end dudes hopping into the transfer portal, there's an issue. Now, what is the issue? Is it a major culture problem? Is it where they promised a bunch of things and it didn't work out? Is this guy just a terrible human being behind the curtain? Well, I don't, that could be debated, but there's a major problem. And we don't have that issue here at South Carolina. Like, you're not seeing the big guys every year just jump into the portal.
No, I mean, and there's early on, and I don't think, people, the NIL situation was not strong in football. And the amounts were much lower back then. And you did have, Marshawn Lloyd jumping in and the Jaheim Bell, and they kind of, and that happened. Beamer didn't recruit those guys. They claimed to have loyalty and they didn't, and made the best decision for them. And you had a guy like a Stone Blanton, a guy like a Pup Howard that honestly they upgraded. They were 4-star recruits, and they're, Pup's playing at Florida and Stone started from Mississippi State this year. They're good players, but for what Carolina needed, that was an absorbable loss. Juice Wells was a kind of a one-off, but now, and it sucks to lose Wendell Gregory. I like him. I think I didn't know about this year. He's kind of a sleeper, but in time, I thought he'd be a heck of a pass rusher. But enjoy Stillwater, Oklahoma. I mean, kid's from Atlanta. Enjoy Stillwater versus Columbia. I mean, and I guarantee you that was a bag. That was we need pass rushers, talk around, agent, that kind of thing. And South Carolina just, they're not going to overpay anybody, including guys that are promising on their own roster. Right. They'll do that before they'll pay $900,000 for a slot receiver. But, and they do a good job of that. And you mentioned retention and players liking the right fit. And that leads to the culture thing. And culture was talked about before there was a transfer portal, right? But now that there is, and you have all this transition, Jamie, culture is what causes a team with 40 new players last year that started 1-3 in the SEC and got robbed of a game against LSU, got beat soundly by Ole Miss, and then lost another heartbreaker at Alabama with a quarterback that's finding his way to say, all right, we're not going to lose anymore, and to go on the run they did. South Carolina doesn't have a good culture. That Oklahoma game could go either way. I mean, they probably struggle because of the start, right? But they didn't, and they won out. And that is, I think, is tangible proof. And if you want people want another example, I can say this. Even that team, the Rattlers last year, that really was undermanned on the offensive line and had a lot of issues depth-wise on defense. I mean, was not what I would call a winning roster in the SEC. Even that group sitting at 2-6, heading into November, and the schedule helped. but they had enough in the tank to survive Jacksonville State, to beat Vanderbilt's Bahunkus into the ground, and then to win a really great atmosphere game against Kentucky. And, you know, they held Clemson out of the end zone that game and lost because Clemson's defense played very well. Clemson held the ball. You know, there are a lot of reasons you lose that one, but they never gave up, is my point. Same thing with how they turned it around 2022. Beamer's done a great job of that. And I think today that matters a whole lot. And you hear the guys, I mean, I'm not one to stalk players on Instagram, but because they're putting pictures of practice up and videos of practice up, I've been seeing some of the players on Instagram lately put up, I guess it's their post-spring collage or whatever. And you see the comments from the teammates and talking about it. It just feels like there's a togetherness, and that starts at the top with your leadership. If you don't have that, and you're absolutely right, now that everybody's kind of got money and everybody's willing to pay to keep their stars and stuff like that, you know, you start losing great players. That's not a good sign about what your head coach is all about.
Well, we can say this safely. They are going to lose a bunch of good players over the next 72 hours plus, because the NFL draft is here. And South Carolina, I gave you all the stats at the top of the program today. If they're expected in the first 3 rounds, JC, to hear 4 defensive players' names called. That would be the first time that 4 players would go in the top 3 rounds since 2002. And those were 4 defensive guys as well. Kalimba Edwards, Sheldon Brown, Andre Goodman, and Willie Alford. The last time 4 defensive players went in one draft was 2012. That was Travian, Antonio Allen, Melvin Ingram, and Stephon Gilmore. And if they get 5 players from the defensive side of the football that go into the draft this year, that'll be the first time that that's happened since 2002 as well. The 5th one was John Stamper, and you might wonder who the 5th one could be. And in the latest stuff from ESPN, this is pretty cool. We know about the big 4 of Demetrius Knight, Kyle Kennard, TJ Sanders, and, of course, Nicky Manwari, who now, by many, is being projected as the first safety off the board ahead of Malachi Starks. But from Mel Kiper and TJ Yates with ESPN, or TJ Yates, Field Yates with ESPN.
TJ Yates, baby. Woo!
Keep an eye on Tonka Hemingway, who they have as their 133rd overall prospect in the NFL draft. I believe South Carolina this year will be somewhere 8, 9. I think that they will break their record of 7, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, 8's the number I have in my head. But then I start looking at who will not get, if it is 8, who's not getting drafted, and I'm like, why would you not take him? You know, yeah. I just like Rocket Sanders. Todd McShay had his top 23 running backs. Did not have Rocket in there. Maybe the injury, you know, that does matter, but I can't imagine anybody not taking Rocket Sanders. GA actually training players for the draft, and he had a kid from UNLV that is about a lot like Rocket, you know, 226, 4'4" guy, good hands out of the backfield. So those guys are valuable that have his skill set. And then, you know, I kind of personally hope O'Donnell Fortune gets drafted, because that's another in-state. Well, I mean, yeah, that was your player of the year.
That's my guy.
I thought he played great. And that's yet another in-state corner from South Carolina that would be drafted. I think that would be 3 years in a row. Yeah, Darius Rush, Cam Smith, and then Marcellus Dial. And then now it would be, you know, O'Donnell, O.D. Fortune. So, yeah, very interesting draft. You know, this matters for your program. I think having a record number of players drafted. The school record is actually 9, but 1954 there were 300 and however 450 guys taken.
Right,
16 rounds or something. I mean,
yeah.
So
that wasn't the modern era. Yeah,
and I'll say this too. I'll add this about Tonka Hemingway, and you know, I don't know that Bam Martin Scott's going to get drafted, but I could. All it takes is one team, as we always say. talking to Barry Sanderson this morning about Ronaldo Balkman getting drafted in the NBA draft. It just takes one team. But in the 3-down defenses and those systems they run in the NFL, he is tailor-made to be an end. Like, you have a nose and then you split them with two guys. They call them ends. They're big ends, tackle hybrid type guys. And then they get the pass rush off with their linebackers. And that's also where Bam Martin-Scott, I think, could excel as a 3-4 outside backer that rushes the passer. So both those guys, look for them in the later rounds. And of course, that's not till Saturday, so we'll talk about it tomorrow. But look for them to find scheme fits if they get drafted. But I absolutely agree. Tonka's an NFL player. I think for that role, they're probably not a whole lot better.
Well, thanks to Coach Mangus and Derek Scott for joining us. Sorry about the glitch. I'm going to stick around for one more segment, probably about a half hour. And JC and I will go back and forth. Alex Jones will join the show coming up at 12:30. Phil will be in at some point too. So don't go anywhere. We got more on the draft. I've got a bunch of good information got out at the top of my program. JC, I'll share some of this with you as well. I know you've got a bunch of stuff on the agenda. It's a Thursday, and barring any more power cuts around here, we'll continue to move right along.
The power company, man.
Yeah,
the electric company. Y'all remember that show?
They're out there like clearing power lines or something, so I'm pretty sure I know what's going on. But anyways, we'll step aside. 2 more hours of the show. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Happy New Year from the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com. Gamecock owned and operated.
Welcome to Dry Space Crawl Space Solutions. Basement crawl space encapsulation designed for your specific needs. Your crawl space can be susceptible to all sorts of issues, including moisture buildup, mold growth, and structural damage if not cared for properly. Let our trained experts provide basement crawl space encapsulation solutions to protect your home, improve air quality, and enhance energy efficiency. Schedule your consultation today for a safer, healthier space at dryspacecs.com. Dry Space Crawl Space Solutions, proud supporters of your South Carolina Gamecocks.
Remarkable, 5-star, sensational. These are just some of the terms used to describe nationally renowned chef William Turner out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Originally from Georgetown, South Carolina, and a diehard Gamecocks fan, Chef Will made his way out west and has served parties from every state and many countries from across the globe. If you're in Arizona or have plans elsewhere, visit chefwilliamturner.com to inquire about private events and more. From MLB to NFL, the chef has served everyone. He's won all the awards, done all the press. There's a reason for that. Food from every culture, all of it first class. chefwilliamturner.com and Chef Will Turner on socials. You won't believe what you see. You really won't believe how it tastes.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Welcome to Inside the Gamecocks, the show, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Mad Dog's upstate raised and reared up near the tater patch. He flirted with that upstate team, now bleeds garnet and black. It's been almost 2 decades since JC started Big Spur. He may live outside of Chicago, but he's all Spartanburg. It's the show, the Gamecock Show. ITG, Phil and JC, it's the show. It's fun and entertainment, but also information, things you cannot get on radio. It's the show. Gather around all you Gamecocks, it's the show. The show. Let's go. JC and Mad Dog Mully on the Gamecock Show.
All right, it is a little bit after noon here on the show. Welcome back. Yeah, it's me. I'm not Phil or JC, JB. My time got cut short the first 2 hours because the doofus is working on the power lines out there. So I'm going to get my time on draft day. No, it's not about me. It's about all of you. Welcome back, JB and JC. Thanks to Mangus. If you missed that, he's the best. You can talk golf with GA, right, JC? You can talk bowling, you can talk football, you can talk chopping your finger off, all kinds of stuff. Phil will be along in a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah. You're like Congress. I'm reclaiming my time.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts when they say that.
Something I don't want any part of.
No. But yeah, always good to catch up with GA. And I caught some of the conversation with Derek as well. Both were in cars today. So I'm assuming Derek had a lot of interesting things to say about the basketball transfer portal and some things like that. I'll tell you what, JB, I usually kind of enjoy the portal seasons, and because there's stuff to follow, and it's like Christmas, who you're gonna get, that kind of thing. I am ready for this to be over.
Yeah,
for both sports. It's too much right now with the money, the fake money. I just don't really like fakeness. What I like about sports is there's always a real result. I mean, you could talk and we talk it to death, but ultimately you're going to get on the field or the court or the diamond and you're going to settle it. It's real,
Right.
It's a real competition. And just the fakeness that's out there is unbelievable in all ways, like fake value, fake numbers, fake money, like Tupac used to say, fake money. I can't repeat the lyrics to that rap.
No,
but it's called Hit 'Em Up.
Yeah.
It's just for those that want to check it out. So I'm ready for it to be over. I'm ready to, like, okay, here are the players for both teams. I know we got a baseball off season to live through as well, but this is a very trying time for me in my career, just because I'm like, I just can't believe it's gotten this out of control, and not just on social media, but everywhere. I'm just like, this is not good for college sports at all.
No. I was talking to Ashley Chastain last week, and she was informing me that the portal for softball opens like right when the NCAA tournament does, like the day that the NCAA tournament opens, the portal opens. And I said, what? And she's like, I'm not worried about my players jumping into the portal when we're playing in the postseason. That's not what I'm concerned about. What I am concerned about is the fact that I've got to get a team ready to go try to win a College World Series. And I also need to be keeping an eye on the portal. I mean, it is really difficult on our staff. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, it's just outrageous. But it is draft day, JC, and I know y'all have got plenty of stuff to get to, and I know Alex is coming up too. One of the things that I found unique on this deal, again, there's a bunch of players that we'll keep our eyes on throughout the week, and we mentioned maybe 8, 9 of them could go, 10 potential, who knows. There's there are guys that weren't invited to the combine, obviously, that might have a chance, and a few of those guys will probably end up signing UFAs. And you got a kicker or a punter in Kai Kroger, who's expected to land with somebody. Will he hear his name called maybe late in the draft on Saturday or something like that? But I did a little research this morning, and I found this really neat as a nice tip of the cap to Coach Beamer and his staff, because we are in the portal era, and you do have to go out and sign guys. But at the end of the day, whether you have to go out and sign them out of the portal or you've recruited them yourself and you've developed them yourself or whatever the case is, they're still going to be your players. And I mentioned this earlier, minus the first draft in the Holtz era, the Spurrier era, the Beamer era, the Muschamp era, all those things, minus the first draft, because remember, these guys just got signed, so those weren't really those weren't their players. Coach Spurrier had 5 players drafted in his first 3 draft class. That's it. If you 6, 7, and 8, because again, 5, he got hired late November of 2004, the draft of 2005. He never coached any of those guys. He had 5. Coach Holtz had 7. Muschamp, the 16 draft doesn't count, right, for Coach Muschamp. 17 does.
17 does, yeah. Nobody.
There were no players. 18, there was 1, Hayden Hurst, and then 19, you had 3, Debo, Rashad, and Dennis Daly. So you had 4 players. Coach Holtz, in his first 3 years, had 7 players that went in the 2000 and 2002 draft. They didn't have anybody go in 2001. Those are the only 2 years for a long, long time where players didn't go from South Carolina. In Shane Beamer's first 3 years, minus 2021, because he didn't coach JC, Ernest Jones, Shi Smith, or Izzy McQuamu, in his first 3 years, he's got 12, JC.
Yeah.
And by the end of this thing, he could have over 20 in his first 4 years, which is that's a startling number, really, if you ask me.
Spurrier coached, I guess, 11 draft classes at South Carolina and had 34.
Right.
14 of them, or I think 20 of them, came 3 straight years. Or he had 3. Let me back up. He had like that 09 draft class with Captain Munnerlin and that crowd, Jared Cook. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's 7, just like 13. It's the highest in the modern era. 7 players.
So those guys, mostly on defense, were really good. But we can say, first and foremost, you have to give Will Muschamp credit for recruiting well and leaving the roster in good shape. Nobody wants to listen to me on that. There are people that debate it, but you look at the 12 that have been drafted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them were Muschamp recruits. 2 of them were transfers from William and Marion Wingate, respectively.
Right.
And the rest were high school guys, many of them from the state of South Carolina, that he brought in. Now, does he get credit for turning them into NFL players? No, Beamer had to coach them.
Right.
And these days also I said this kind of while you were off, these days you have to retain them too.
Yeah.
Because there's been a transfer portal every year Beamer's been here, but this is not a transfer heavy, portal heavy bunch of draftees that they've produced, but the large majority of it are high school players. Now the portal guys, Spencer Rattler, Nick Gargiulo came in from the portal. Marcellus Dial was a junior college transfer. This year's group probably will be a little, they're more portal guys. Let's just be honest. I mean, Josh Simon, Rocket Sanders, Torricelli Simpkins, Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight. But there's also high school guys, Tonka, OD Fortune, TJ Sanders are all high school guys. Nicky Manwari is a high school guy.
Yeah.
And this draft will be the last. There are some guys that committed to Will Muschamp. I think Ja'Kai Moore's the only one left on the roster that actually was recruited by Will and his staff. But like Nick Barrett committed to them, but actually signed with Beamer. So there's some remnants of it. This is the last time, and you do have, Tonka, OD, both recruited by Will Muschamp. Sanders, they got committed. He was same class as Nick Barrett, but it's becoming, Shane Beamer's program. And I tell you, man, it's so valuable. You talk about what's made Georgia the success they are besides the national championships, which national championships are what folks like us and the media and fans and all that look at. But I guarantee you those recruits look at 40 guys in 3 years in the NFL, and most of them are playing and thriving and getting paid. They send out on social media, this is how much our players made in the NFL, that the number, the $1 billion or whatever. The more guys you have drafted, the better. And the school record technically is 9, the 1954 draft, but it had, I think, 360 players and 20 rounds or something. I mean, it was everybody's draft, and I'd like to see. I still have not looked up how the 53 Gamecocks did. Hopefully good. That was their first year in the ACC. First year there was an ACC in 1953, but so it'd have been the 54 draft. So it's a long time ago. Modern era, though, never been more than 7. I'm a little nervous just based on some of the projections, but I mean, man, I just don't know how you don't draft a Josh Simon or a Rocket Sanders. And I can make a strong case for Fortune and Torricelli Simpkins as well, but we'll just have to see how it goes, because it's, you can project all you want. At the end of the day, it's up to the guy like Kevin Costner on that movie Draft Day, which apparently invokes a lot of feelings on both sides.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm with you on that. I think OD goes as well, and I think he'll probably end up going Saturday. But here's why: the word is out on the development at South Carolina. If you play in the secondary, they know that you come to the NFL and you've got some polish on you, and they've watched. And one of the great things too, and I know that NFL guys love this, JC. I know that you've spoken to many of them over the years. Talent is one thing. Clearly they're going to draft talent. They want to draft. We get all that, but there are always NFL executives and coaches, front office folks that look at developed players, and they look at the step-by-step process of where was this guy when he got to school and where is this guy at the end of school. And then they go in, and part of their research and they're basically an investigation is what it is, right? And all these players is determining how did they get from point A to point B, right? So you've got a guy like O'Donnell Fortune who comes in as they don't look at the stars in the NFL necessarily, but we'll call him for the sake of this conversation, kind of a lower 3-star, middle 3-star guy is basically what he was kind of tattooed with before he got to campus. And then what happened when he was at South Carolina? All right, well, there's a lot to that story. Number one, he didn't transfer. That's number one. Number two, think about all the guys, and you just pointed out a handful of them, that he played behind. And he sat there and he kept working. and he kept working, and he kept working, and he waited his time. And then, of course, Torian Gray is kind of the cherry on top of this thing where, hey, follow me, young man. I'll get you where you want to go. That's a great story to sell if you're a Donald Fortune. Not to mention, and you and I've had a chance to spend time around him, he is a very likable kid. Like, he's a very likable guy. He's very quiet, doesn't say a lot, but he's a very, very, very likable guy. And then this past season, we saw him play at the highest level that he's ever played with. So I think a guy like that goes. Where does he go? Is he a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder or something? Who knows? But I've got big hopes for him. I want to give you one quick stat, too. You mentioned Rocket Sanders. I don't know if you realize this or not, but since they went to, like, in 1960 is basically kind of like the modern era of the draft where they went to positions, linebackers and guards and tackles and running backs and all that stuff, right? So 65 years ago. Do you realize this? If Rocket goes, because this doesn't get a lot of run in South Carolina football history, he will be the 20th running back drafted in that period. That's not bad, man. That's pretty good, actually. That's not guys signed. I mean, Rico signed, but the 20th running back drafted, that's pretty good.
For a program, too, that has not had a slew of 1,000-yard rushers, that's very solid, in my opinion. And, growing up, it kind of, Carolina always was pretty good at running back, but, I was kind of in the Harold Green, Mike Dingle era, and then boom, here comes Brandon Bennett. And then boom, here comes Deuce Staley and Troy Hamrick, and then boom, here comes Derek Watson, and then Demetrius Summers. So they've had some lean years there, but I mean, it seems like that is a position. I mean, just recently you've had, Kevin Harris, I think was the last running back that was drafted, if I'm not mistaken. But excuse me, Rocket could. There's something funny there with these projections on Rocket. I know Todd McShay, and I can't imagine this is about like just talent, because I mean, they're talking about it being such a great year at running back, and then I'm like, you list 23 of them, and Rocket's not on there, and I'm like, I guess it has to be the injury situation, but projections are one thing, experts are one thing, and what the NFL actually does is another. And I think Rocket absolutely is an NFL back. And if he doesn't get drafted, somebody's going to sign him, and they'll put him on, the roster. I mean, because he'll be cheaper. That factors into things too.
Yeah,
but that's very interesting about the running backs. I guess Dan Reeves was a quarterback here and got drafted. He played running back in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. I mean, it's, though you have to separate. It's like you mentioned 1954, and I remember that year very well. And what was alarming, you mentioned the 20 rounds. You were 10 off. It was 30 rounds or something like that is what it was. So, yeah, it's, and I remember that. And I remember sitting there and watching ESPN in 1954 going, man, is this thing ever going to end? Like, it took 7 days to get through it. No, back then they did 30 rounds in about 3 hours. It was like, they'd pick up, get on the horn. Hey, Tom, how about that guy down in South Carolina? That sounds good. Bill, we're going to take the guy from South Carolina. Take Hugh Merck. How do you spell that? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Like Mercantile. Right?
There's a C in there somewhere. Good old Bob King went that year. Matter of fact, I remember the Eagles took Tommy Woodley as the 357th overall pick in that draft.
Tommy Woodley, come on now.
Yeah. Exactly. Matter of fact, here, let's give a shit, because there might be a descendant watching our program of somebody who went in the 1954 draft for the Gamecocks. Clyde Bennett, Jim Kincaid, Frank Mincevich, Gene Wilson, Hugh Merck, Bill Warman, Bob King, Johnny Gramling. Oh, Johnny, boy, he could play. And,
I remember that name from
Tommy Wood
history books.
There you go. So to those families,
Johnny Gramling, little chap from South Carolina. Ready? I'm Scoot McDonald here, high above Philadelphia Stadium today. All of you have a wonderful afternoon.
For what it's worth, the first player ever drafted from the University of South Carolina was Larry Craig in 1939. He went in the 6th round. He was the 49th overall selection, and he went to where the draft is this year, the Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay Packers. Man, you don't understand how much my dedication to this show and being here every day, number one. But number two, how much I wanted to go to the draft. My buddy lives in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is about 2.5 hours drive from here. Got a party bus to Green Bay, $65 and refreshments included.
Wow,
plus a tailgate at the Champions Touchdown Bar, a mile from Lambeau, where all the festivities are going on.
Wow.
I was like tempted, but I was like, it's a Thursday. I'm old.
60
and this cat in particular, you know, when I hang with him, it gets a little messy sometimes. To be honest, he and I have had some wonderful times together. He's from Wisconsin, so those people, it's basically just you know, they don't really drink water; they just drink beer and go ice fishing and eat cheese and Polish sausage.
Fair enough.
But anyway, but yeah, I wanted to go, man, and hopefully maybe it's within driving distance at some point for me, because I do want to experience it. But yeah, back then, I mean, that's just sort of interesting, because you I guess you had a telephone, you know, hey Susan, can you get me Mark Chesterfield at 1.545 Columbia, South Carolina? Hi, Herb Merck.
Yeah. Well, you know, what if the operator didn't answer while you were trying to phone in your pick? You know what I mean? And
I mean, I guess they didn't have a timer.
You know, or what if
no timer, no signal?
You know, they couldn't get their pick in because, you know, they didn't have the phone line. You know, the operator was on a bathroom break or something like that. You know,
cigarette break. Susan, take a cigarette break.
You know,
hey dear, hey Toots.
Toots, yeah.
Toots. This dame is on a cigarette break. Yeah. This is Papa Bear George Hannes from the Chicago Bears. You're drafted by the Bears. Oh yeah.
It's funny, as I just had images of my grandmother in her younger years, because she worked for the phone companies during the war as they were traveling around, because she could always get a job that way while my grandfather was overseas.
That's awesome.
You can imagine some, you know, like some Hallis, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
well,
good looking.
Phil, you actually bring up kind of an interesting point. I would love to get someone to do. I've seen this on baseball, not to make it serious, because I do love y'all's impressions. But it's been heavily documented how Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball draft were impacted by the war. World War II. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, how did a lot of these guys, like, I've never read much on it from a football standpoint. I don't even know if I've read anything about guys who were in the NFL or I guess at that point in time it was in the NFL, but the, you know, American Football League or whatever they called it. And guys who were drafted, and it was like, yeah, well, I was drafted, but I was also drafted. You know what I mean? Like I got to go. I'm going overseas. Well, yeah, you're a 5th round draft pick. I got to go. You know what I mean? Like it, you know, that would never be the case today. And back then, these guys, they chose the uniform of the Stars and Bars over the uniform of whomever they'd be playing for. I would love to see something on that. I just don't know much about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're right, because there's plenty of history from Major League Baseball, of course.
Well, I mean, you think like my grandfather, and I know I got to go, Alex coming on, but my grandfather was an Olympic rower. He was on. They were in. I guess it would have been 1941, I think, and it got canceled because the war broke out. But my grandfather was an Olympian. He was part of the U.S. Olympic rowing team. They've been training. They were scheduled to go, and then the war happened. You know, and that all ended. So how many careers at that point in time were upended in football because of war.
It says there were 1,000 NFL players that served. 19 died. President Roosevelt. They kept playing, but some teams folded and had to merge, and their rosters got. I mean, back then there were only 28 guys on the roster, but they played Iron Man football back then, buddy. But apparently during when Pearl Harbor was bombed, December 7th, 1941, the Brooklyn football Dodgers and the New York football Giants were playing at the Polo Grounds. Comiskey Park here in Chicago. The Bears were playing what was known as the Chicago Cardinals at the time. And the Redskins, they had the Redskins back then. They were playing the Eagles, and the military personnel got a page. So it was it kind of all happened with football as the backdrop. And like I said, 19 servicemen lost their lives and 1,000 went overseas. And I'm not clear as to what franchises folded during World War II or not, but they did keep playing. Because I know some college seasons were stopped. Like they didn't play during World War II.
Yeah. So that's if there's any bet I'll make for the weekend, you mentioned the Redskins. It's that the Redskins will not take a Gamecock. They have not taken one since the 1989 draft. Linebacker Kevin Hendricks went in the 7th round. It's the last time Washington selected a member of the South Carolina football team.
And it's great they took him because his nickname was Chief.
Oh, I love
Chief
that.
Hendricks. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. George Rogers played a lot for the Redskins. The Saints traded.
Well, yeah.
Brad Edwards, I think, played some for the Redskins, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he wrote the infamous check though when he was in a Saints uniform.
Hey, buddy, that 4 line, it's optional.
Wait a second, George. You sure you want me to catch this?
Optional.
All right.
Skip that part.
All right. Before I get out of here, the rotation released officially by Maneri. It is still TBA for Sunday. Sunday, because the series starts tomorrow. They have not announced Dylan SQ, although we understand that that's who they would like to see get the ball. So we'll see what happens here. Everything else is the same. Stone, McCoy.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I guess power permitting, I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you.
Fun
over
show
there.
today.
It's been adventures and
what having a team's for. I'm just happy Mangus just sat there on the phone. He's like, hell, I got nothing better to do.
I know. Yeah, he's just like, oh, I'm all right.
So that was good.
Removed himself from.
I'm just glad I was sitting here.
Yeah,
I was right. I was just doing. It's about to make a post on Big Spur about all this draft data that we just talked about, and I was like, oh well, I guess I won't be doing that now.
Well, I started laughing too because I was like, GA, how's your golf game? Oh, good. I almost cut my finger off a few weeks back. Jesus, man, good to see you. How'd you do that? Cutting some ice.
Guy.
Whoa. All right. We'll see y'all. See you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Thanks, JB.
I'll be back after these messages on the show. Gamecocks Smorgasbord. With our proud of Hampton County Alex Jones of the BigSport.com coming up as the show rolls on a Thursday.
It's gone! That ball is going to be out of here! Fair ball in the corner!
The atmosphere in Founders Park is electric. There's nothing like being loud and proud for our Gamecocks. Gamecock Traditions proudly supports Carolina baseball and wants you to look your best while you're at the ballpark. Come see us and choose from the best selection of game hats, hoodies, shirts, and all that entails the baseball logo. From tailgate gear to jewelry and plenty for your kids, Gamecock Traditions is your Gamecock baseball locker room. Don't forget, we have the widest selection for all sports and USC apparel. Come see us in Lexington or in the village at Sandhill, or order online and have it shipped to your doorstep at GamecockTraditions.com. Go Gamecocks!
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Nana's Porch presents a Southern staple delivered right to your doorstep. Nana's Porch locally crafted pimento cheese has been a hit for years at weddings, tailgates, and other events. Now you can order online and have it sent to your home. Visit nanasporch.com. That's nanasporch.com and click the pimento cheese tab to choose between their original pimento cheese and their jalapeno smoked pimento cheese set. nanasporch.com. Man, that's good.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. You know, when I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks The Show. Coming in now with Gamecocks Smorgasbord, none other than the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones from thebigspur.com. Joins us. Alex, good to see you, man. How's your day going?
It's going good so far. How about you guys?
Oh, you know, we're hanging in there.
It's been interesting.
It's been an
We've
adventure.
had power outages. We've had air conditioner repairmen. Where I'm at, it's actually about 78 degrees and sunny. So I'm going to go for a nice leisurely walk after we get off here. But I had to jump in. We had GA Mangus on. I had to turn on my computer and jump in for JB because his power went out. But and so we're doing well. Right off the bat, breaking news. I guess Dante Reno is in the transfer portal. I didn't necessarily, Alex, think this was a given at the beginning of spring, after spring, when it looked apparent that, you know, Cutter Woods, Aaron Nolan, you know, they're recruiting behind him. I just, you know, I kind of felt like maybe this would happen unless he just want to kind of stick around and be a glue guy. Then you throw Luke Doty in the quarterback room as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know kind of where he fit in. You know, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's all too much of a surprise. And I think when you look at that quarterback room right now, obviously QB1, the North Stars, and then really that kind of QB2 battle, Dante Reno was in it, but you really saw Cutter Woods get a majority of the snaps in the spring game. You saw Aaron Nolan get a lot of snaps, and you know, Dante Reno got some snaps in there late. And then you also, like as you mentioned, got Luke Doty in there as well. And so I think it was just, you know, he was maybe going to see what else opportunities he can find from a playing time standpoint. Because I think, you know, when you look at that quarterback two battle, I think it's Cutter, it's those three are right there, Doty, Woods, and Nolan that are really battling for that.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. You know, I and that kind of happened as spring went along. Heading into spring, I tell you, I think he had a shot at it. I mean, but that's a core tenet of the program is, you know, competition, and with any competition, you have winners and losers, and you know, guys that are, you know, and there's a pecking order that emerges, and that's good there. I hope he can go play somewhere. I think he's got good arm talent. I think he's really got a shot. Good kid, like his dad, the head coach at Yale. Yeah. So they're good people, and he kind of committed. It seems like he's been a part of the program for a long time because he committed early. Just really wanted to go to South Carolina. And so, you just got to wish him the best with that. And so there's another one out. The transfer portal is open for one more day. You feel like anybody else will get in? What are you kind of thinking?
I don't know. You never know. It seems like you're never going to know these days with it being just kind of the wild, wild west. Like you never know who could jump in, but I haven't really heard of anybody else right now, but still got a day in. So we'll see what the numbers are going to look like, but we'll see what else happens.
Yeah, there could be one or two more, but I can't guarantee that. And I think it would be a good day for Carolina with all the chaos going on everywhere else, man. If it just ended at Pringle, Reno, and Gregory, and then whoever they lost before, I'll take that. If you'd have told, you tell me before all this started happening, what was going on in college football and college sports in general. You tell me that, and then you tell me this is what they're going to lose. You could either take this, or you could see what's behind door number 2. I would not take door number 2. I wouldn't hedge my bets.
Yeah, the guys they've lost so far probably weren't going to make too much of an impact this season, but guys like a Wendell Gregory, I was really actually interested to see how he continued to progress at edge because I thought that was kind of his best spot coming out of high school with what he did at Walton County. So I was interested to see maybe next year down the road what he could be. And same for Cam Pringle. I thought, his potential was there, but I don't think those guys were going to make much of an impact to this season so far. But, I'm interested to see where they end up. And obviously those are all great guys right there, and good luck to them at their next stops.
Yeah. And Wendell landed at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Total bag. Total deal where his agent probably wasn't happy with the money he was making. Oklahoma State probably looking at their outbound portal, they have a lot of Mike Gundy's got a lot of spots open.
Yeah.
And so they were probably willing to pay him significantly more. And in South Carolina, you just can't do that for a guy that is on the fringe of even being in the rotation, no matter how promising he is. That's the unfortunate part of right now. I think when we get to, if they get the house settlement done and they get to rev share, most all of your inexperienced guys like Pringle and Gregory, they're not going to have the opportunity to go make that much more somewhere else unless the team's just desperate. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I completely agree with that.
Cool. Okay. So inbound portal, your thoughts about George Wilson. So you got two sort of familiar names. Yeah. I mean, Damon Clowney, when he was a recruit, of the guys that never even really considered South Carolina, we are asked about him for obvious reasons a whole lot. I mean, it was like the end of why is Clowney's cousin going to LSU? And then he flipped to Ole Miss. And I'm like, because the staff doesn't think he's good enough, and he's probably not. I don't think he's torn it up, good enough for a depth piece now. And then George Wilson was one that was committed during Muschamp the last season. Big time recruit, 4-star guy. Got recruited over at Florida State. I guess South Carolina says he's 235 now. It says he's 230 at Campbell. Your thoughts on those two guys as depth pieces in the edge room? And look, if either one is a starter, then I don't know how much money you can pay Sterling Lucas, but it's not enough because if either one of these guys comes out there and balls. And then you have a 1-year development with Kyle Kennard last year where he went from spotty player to NFL draft pick and Nagurski Award winner in 1 year. I think it speaks volumes. But all that aside, Alex, your thoughts about those two pickups.
Yeah, obviously in that room, you needed numbers with losing Wendell Gregory. And then with, I'm not sure we know the extent of Jaylen Brown's injury right now, but obviously he didn't return for spring practice. So you needed numbers in that room, and you went out and got them. And I think with Wilson, he's kind of intriguing just because of he was a really highly, as you mentioned, a highly ranked recruit coming out of high school. Then goes to Campbell after Florida State. He's been productive there, had 7 sacks in 2 years there, I think. And so there's some production there that I think Sterling Lucas and those guys can build on. And I'd be interested to see if he can give you, if either of those guys can really give you really anything this year when they come in. Because I think right now, if you think about that edge room, you maybe would pencil in Brian Thomas Jr. as a starter opposite of Dylan Stewart. But, guys like Deju, I thought he had some moments in that spring game as well. And then you also got, JT Gear is in there right now. And I just think, you continue watching that room and you look at it, they just need the numbers. And I'm really intrigued with Wilson, especially because I think he, as I mentioned, there's some production there. And I think what we've seen with Sterling Lucas and how he can develop those guys, let's see what he can do with George Wilson and Clowney. I think, just anything with those guys, really both of those guys you can get from those guys you take.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Both these guys have played too. When they played college football, they're older, fifth-year guys. Because what you don't want to do is, because if you have an injury, and you start at edge making freshmen go in and play significant minutes, other coaches will identify that on you, and then they'll check into an ISO run play on the outside, and they'll double team that guy and pancake him, and he'll lose confidence forever. I can't come back. You mentioned Desmond Umazulu. Give me your take on him. I thought that as someone that did not watch every play of the spring game, I watched enough of it. I had a spy sending me video. But the feedback, I thought that was one of the more encouraging things to hear, because Dez has played quite a bit. I mean, 112 snaps last year, and has played in 24 of 25 games since he's been here. Just hadn't heard much out of it. I mean, just kind of been out there, when he's played. Your thoughts on what was the difference in the Dez you saw in the spring game versus the Dez you've seen in the 25 previous games he's played in?
I think he just continues to get bigger and stronger. And that was the thing when he came in from high school. I think you thought maybe it was going to take him a year or two just because he was a little lean, but he's put on a lot of muscle. And that was something that you realized last year when you're watching him, you could see that he has. And now I think the next step was just that on-field production. And Sterling Lucas has done a pretty good job of continuing to develop him. And I think it's just continuing to develop pass rushing moves and then being better in the run game. And, I thought maybe he was a little bit quicker, I thought, coming off the ball. That's something I thought, just watching him, that was one of the first things that stand out. But, I think it's a big year for Deju just because I think it's now his time to put it all together. Like, as I mentioned, it was this first year, maybe two, were just him kind of continuing to build and get bigger and stronger and faster. But now he's got an opportunity. I said to pencil in Brian Thomas Jr. as that started, but, don't count out Deju either. And they rotate so much of those positions too, especially, having to give guys like Dylan Stewart and the starter, whoever the other starter is going to be, a break. So I'm really interested to see Deju and think he could be in for a step up season.
Yeah, that would be a good time. If you, Alex, obviously it's April, but who do you pencil in as the starter opposite Dylan Stewart coming out of spring?
I think I would go Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, I think because I think when you look at his performance last year, he really kind of had a sneaky good season. I think it was somewhere around maybe 4 tackles for loss or so. And every time he gets in the game, it seems like he's involved in the play in some way. And I think, the knock has always been that maybe he's a little bit short for that defensive end spot, but he always goes 110% when he's out there on the field. And, like I said, it seems like he's always in on making plays and makes big plays at that. So I think it's kind of his time now. He's learned from guys like Kyle Kennard. He's seen, learned from Dylan Stewart as well, even though he's a younger guy, learned from Dylan as well, and has some other older guys to learn from. So it kind of feels like Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of his time this year.
Yeah, I can think so. Maybe he's good. You could see he's got a high motor and actually did have some good production. I share some of the concerns JC does just from a size standpoint when you're going up against these linemen. But listen, you can overcome that with effort and technique.
One thing I think he can be really good is obvious pass rush standpoints. Like when it's a 3rd and long, I think they can throw him in there, and that's where he can really thrive as well.
Desmond Umazulu is 6'6", 255 pounds.
I mean, you draw him up like that, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's why he's a heavily. I mean, in high school he played mostly inside. Brian Doan saw him play several times. He said, "Well, this kid's got a long way to go, but he's capable." I guess anytime you beat Ohio State on an out-of-state player, everybody's expecting this guy to come in and take over, Clowney style or Dylan Stewart style. But Desmond was never that type of recruit. He was a top 150 recruit because of his potential.
Yeah.
if they can get that, I know Clint Morrison, our boy in the chat box, he's on the Big Spur as well. He says that's why I was so big on him. His frame is perfect for a DN. Yeah, and they're really outside of like universal recruiting hype because Jaquavius Dodd was a 4-star by composite. They're really similar guys, like Desmond Numazulu and Jaquavius Dodd. Carolina obviously didn't beat Ohio State head-to-head on Dodd. He's an in-state guy. There's not as much foot traffic as maybe there is in the state of Maryland, but they're the same kind of guy. So there's that kind of upside. And I think that with Dodd in particular, although some people that have seen him, he's probably a little further along than maybe I think. But I think by year 3, if he's out there starting or whatever, that's fine. I also think there's some Devin Taylor syndrome going on where, Devin Taylor was a guy they signed. You didn't hear about him at all. And then he was starting the next year. And you kind of thought that year in 2009, it was maybe about, as a redshirt freshman, maybe it was about, depth or whatever. Because I believe they moved Travian Robert. That's the year they moved Travian inside. And he wasn't in because Travian had gotten hurt, something like that. I don't know. But, so, okay, well, it's Devin Taylor. First play of his career. He punches the ball out against like Russell Wilson at NC State, and Carolina won that game 7-3. So I always say Devin Taylor made quite an entrance, and so maybe people in their mind think if it's not by year 2, who knows? But I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I was surprised Desmond played 112 snaps with that group they had last year. I mean, that was crazy. So talking edge here, keeping it in that category. Here's what concerns me, and see if you agree about edge. I think South Carolina, I think even with Clowney and Wilson, I think those guys can rush the passer. I think that's what they are, is pass rushers. I think Brian Thomas Jr. can rush the passer. I believe Desmond can rush the passer. JT, all that other, and we know Dylan Stewart can. What worries me is this: Kyle Kennard last year. It sounds weird because of 11.5 sacks, but I thought he was elite against the run. I really did. I can't count how many times somebody tried to run wide. He'd bust their butt in the backfield. He set the edge. I thought he was very effective in the run game, Alex, as well. Do you share that opinion?
I think there is maybe a little bit concerned with that because a lot of it is a lot of teams are going to look at Dylan Stewart and be like, well, we're not running at that guy, so we're going to run the other way, and you've got to be good against the run. And I think if you're going to be just a straight pass rusher, a lot of those teams are going to feed off that. When you're running upfield, they're going to run right under you, let the tackle take you out and run right under you. Then it's going to come down to the linebackers being able to make a play. So that's something that I think they're going to continue to look at and see what they can do. But you're right, Kyle Kennard he was good all around, but good as a pass rusher, but he was also kind of sneaky good against the run. I think that's something that whenever the NFL draft talk comes around, like that's something that's going to have him up on the board as well. And I'm interested to see where he goes here in the next day or two. But I think that's something that I am interested to hear about. I'm interested to see as preseason camp gets here and rolls along.
It's interesting. Some of the NFL evaluations I've read question Kyle against the run a little bit. And then look, I haven't gone and charted every single run play, I'll be honest, but he did make a lot of big plays against the run this past year. I thought that was critical. Kind of staying in this universe. Well, I mean, it's probably not a universe. It's probably more like a galaxy or a solar system. D tackle. There's a couple of different opinions out there about the D tackle position. I kind of like what I've heard and seen. I like Monkel Goodwin. I like Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. And then Hale is carrying the banner for Nick Barrett based on what he's heard. I think we all know what Hardy has to do. They're still going to look in the portal for a D tackle. Basically, Alex, TJ Sanders is a stud. I mean, that's a tough guy to replace no matter how many players you have back there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying, even if you had a like a 5-star all conference guy or something that came in, there's no guarantee he's going to be as good as TJ Sanders. Right. And that's just life in football. But I don't really see where this position is hopeless. I actually think compared to some other interior D lines, including this past one before they became the players they were this year, I thought 2023, this is an inconsistent bunch. Keep in mind, they had many years where they collectively did not live up to the potential we thought they had. So your thoughts on D tackle? What's your opinion on all this?
Yeah, I do feel a little bit better about that room than what I felt before spring practice started, just because I think when you listen to the players talk, they talked about from a leadership standpoint. One, Nick Barrett's been one of the guys that stepped up there, and he's a guy who's an experienced player and could maybe be one of the starters. But with the way they rotate so much at defensive tackle, I'm not sure starting at that position really matters because they heavily rotate. But I mean, Monkel Goodwin, I think it showed some flashes last year and took a step forward. Got Nick Barrett mentioned him, and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, like he was a guy who's a highly ranked guy coming out of Texas A&M. It was part of that, I think, that number 1 class where they brought pretty much every 5-star in, it felt like. But he was a guy who I think just got behind some guys, battled a little bit of injuries early in his career, but physically he looks like he could be ready to go and make an impact day one. And I still do think that they need to add one in the portal, just find an experienced guy, just because of numbers standpoint. As I mentioned, they rotate so heavily in there, and you saw that last year. I still think they need to find one experienced defensive tackle just to go along with that room. But I do feel a little bit better about that room from where I was beginning of spring practice.
Yeah, I'm with you because you're thinking about this. Let's say Xavier Hardy, because his thing is physically he's got to get ready to go. But there's also let's say he doesn't get ready. Like it just doesn't happen. It didn't happen as fast as we thought. Because I mean, with Xavier, you're basically dealing with biology and God and nature. And some people can get in shape and reshape faster than others. Some people can't. I mean, it doesn't matter how much they work out. It has nothing to do with coaching or the player or anything. Some people take more time. It's football. Everybody's on a different clock. But let's say he doesn't, and then let's say one of the 3 we just mentioned get hurt, and you're down to 2, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, except for, you have Devontae Miles and Rondarius Porter, and nothing against those guys at all, or Christian Ingram. But Caleb Williams is already down, and a true freshman. So he's behind a lot. And you have to, I get it. I do think one, and Beamer keeps talking about numbers. I do think one, because keep in mind, last year, DeAndre Jules missed half the season. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, we talk about missing him, and I almost wish he would have played in 4 games and then shut it down.
Right.
It would have been great to have that dude back this year. That would have nobody'd have been worried about anything. But and because he was awfully good when he played, especially early before he got hurt. But so you think depth can be a concern with any injury at all there, right?
Yeah, that's why I was saying at least one to add to that room, just because that room is the line of scrimmage in the SEC is so physical that you're going to have guys banged up and injuries. Like I just feel like from a depth standpoint, they've got to find a way to get one guy in there.
Yeah, definitely. Let me ask you this: were you surprised that what Shed Surratt, the true freshman from Gaffney, did this spring? You won an award, I guess, newcomer of the offense. That says a lot considering you had a bunch of great receivers and a lot of good newcomers on offense. 6'4", 336. One of my buddies saw him at Gaffney High School, said he stood flat-footed and dunked the basketball. And my other buddy that lives in Gaffney has been singing his praises since the kid was a freshman. He started at offensive tackle at Gaffney as a freshman. Your thoughts there on that guy?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised just because he was, as a recruit, I was intrigued by him and thought he could come in and, maybe not make an impact right away just because of the numbers standpoint. But I wasn't too surprised to see him continue to perform well in the spring game, because in that second scrimmage, I heard he had another really good scrimmage and somebody that's been standing out to the coaching staff. But he's a guy that in the future, maybe he finds his way into the lineup this year. I don't know. We have to see. I think you hope that maybe he wouldn't, just because you have so many older guys in that room that can take over those spots. But for him in the future, I think they found really I really say a gem just because he rose the rankings really late, but was a guy they identified really early on in the recruiting process. But he's really athletic and I think can play a few different spots on the offensive line. And I think he just one of these freshmen. They had a handful of freshmen who had really good spring practices. I mean, throw Anthony Addison in there at the edge room. I've heard some good things about him as well. And I think Shane Beamer even mentioned him publicly too as somebody who stood out. But they had a lot of freshmen that really stood out, and Shed was just one of them.
Anthony Addison's another Hale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hale's getting pretty good at this stuff. It's yeah, he's not it doesn't not surprise me. So and I'll ask you this about Nick Barrett, then we'll wrap up D-line. Phil, we're going to kind of hold it up. Can we hold you over not hold you over during a break, but can we extend this for about 5 minutes?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. Because we're all off kilter. Like I literally came on in the middle of an interview did 50 minutes. We didn't have the clown song today. I mean, I'm all off.
It's all off. Everything is off.
And I'm enjoying this conversation. So let me ask you that. Nick Barrett. Okay, so Nick's always been a big boy. He's always been in that 325, 330 range. Last offseason, I saw him at the wing eating contest, and I said, that's the skinniest 330-pound guy I've ever seen. Lo and behold, he had lost 28 pounds and was down to 302 whenever all the heights and weights came out. I see he's back to 322. Mm-hmm. I think I think that he's better. He's better when he's bigger. Your thoughts on bigger Nick Barrett?
Yeah, I think that's after last year. I remember seeing that when it first came out that he had dropped the weight, and you're kind of wondering, that's a little light just for that defensive tackle. I mean, I know TJ Sanders was a little bit lighter as well, but I mean, he's a guy who, he had 14 or those 2022 and 2023 season. I think he had 25 combined tackles, and last year just had those guys in front of him. And I think now getting that weight back on is something that's going to help him continue to compete up front in the SEC, just because you have to have that weight, especially on the interior. But he's a guy who I think has kind of just taken over that room from a leadership standpoint. And, I think a lot of those guys kind of see that and respect that, and also seeing on the field what he's been able to do. But that's a key piece of the defensive tackle. And we talk about Monkel Goodwine also taking a step forward. But if Nick Barrett can take that big step forward in this year for 2025, that'd be huge for Travian Robinson. And, we've kind of seen guys who have worked under Travian Robinson. Think about those three guys last year. After a few years working under him, they take a big step forward. And maybe that's Nick Barrett this year able to do that.
I'll say this. Byron Gerardo started all of 2012. I think Nick Barrett's better than Byron Gerardo as a player. I think all of them are. Nothing against Byron. I mean, he was an overachiever and played well. But the thing about those defenses during the Spurrier era, the little secret was they were pretty average overachiever guys in the middle. But end and the perimeter and the spur or whatever, they were all elite players. So you can get by. But I agree with you. I like the bigger Nick Barrett a little better. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the Rasul Faison thing? You think that number one, what'd you think about him in the spring game? And based on your feedback, it was an excellent scrimmage report you had. It saved me the hassle of having to put one together. That's why we love you, Alex. But and all that. But then good scrimmage report there, and also he's a guy you keep hearing about. A lot of the coaches are very high on him. Your thoughts on the spring he had at South Carolina? I know there's no update on his eligibility, but your thoughts about him?
Yeah, I thought he had just about the spring you expect him to have, being an experienced guy that's played a few years of college football. He's a guy that, obviously, as we know, all know 1,100 yards or so last year, Utah State. But, South Carolina, he just brings more experience to that room. And they had that with Oscar Attaway as well, a guy that's experienced. And could see Oscar continue to battle for that number one spot. But, I think he could be really good as that backup, kind of that same role he was in last year with Raheem Sanders. And, he showed some of that last year. But Faison's just a big physical back that, when he gets ahead of steam and he's rolling downhill, you really don't want to have to tackle that guy. He's just a big physical guy. And I think he's got a little bit maybe sneaky speed too. Like he can run away from you. And I think that's kind of why you saw him be ranked as highly as he was in the transfer portal and all the teams that are coming after him. Like just a big physical back that I think kind of complements the rest of that room. But continue with that room. Like I thought Matthew Fuller was a really bright spot in that scrimmage and somebody that they need with the, I guess maybe a little bit inexperience in that room to step up, but he's a load and got another guy that you don't want to tackle. And he just continues turning his legs when he gets into contact. And now having that year under his belt, I think he now understands more what it takes to be an SEC back. And then also Jawarn Howe. I thought overall the running back room was a bright spot in that game. And I think that's something that they need to have happen because they can get those running backs going. You may not be able to replace Raheem Sanders, but if you can get those guys to all four kind of contribute, that's going to help Lenore Sellers in the pass game, but it'll also help Lenore Sellers in the run game as well.
I love Jawarn Howe, and he's big too. People don't understand how large he is. I mean, he's
pretty fast.
6'1", 220 and fast. I still think he reminds me of Derek Watson, and he does wear number 22. But I'm high on all of them. And Fuller, I was told first scrimmage Fuller was 4th out of 4. Like he did not look good. The rest looked pretty good. And then second scrimmage and in the spring game, I thought he looked like the guy I thought he would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, physical, falling forward. There's a picture in our photo gallery where he's stiff arming Fred Johnson. And I'm like, that's not easy to do, dude. Speaking of Fred Johnson, so I have this crazy theory. People don't agree with me, and I may be wrong, and I'll eat my words if I am. I think the linebackers are going to be better than they were last year. I think they got better players. And I think that, and I hate to say that because I say all the time, linebacker is not all necessarily about talent and athleticism. If you don't read your keys right, or if you're making false steps, you can look stupid in a hurry, and it makes it look like you suck. I mean, that's an embarrassing position to mess up mentally at. But I love this group. I think they're tall, long, athletic. I think they're just as fast collectively. I think there's a lot that Fred does that Debo couldn't. Your thoughts on that? Am I crazy? Am I a crazy glue sniffer? Or do you think I may be correct?
I don't think there's going to be as much as a drop off as people maybe thought there would have been with that room. And I think the one drop off there will be just an experience factor. I mean, you had those 3 linebackers who had played a ton of football and had played in Clayton White's system. But I mean, Fred Johnson that guy probably would have played a lot last year if the South Carolina didn't have a Demetrius Knight or Bam Martin Scott. Like he was ready to go last year, but he had a year to learn under those guys. And he's just fast. He's athletic. Like he can get east to west, and really all those guys can. Justin O, you saw that a little bit in the spring game. Sean Murphy, I think, continued to come on throughout spring practice. And I think the linebacker core overall is going to be pretty solid. And I think the defense overall, I thought that's one thing overall defensively is each unit that was out there, each unit was fast. Like they were running to the ball, like getting east to west. And another linebacker to really kind of keep an eye on too is Jerron Willis. Like he put on some weight in the offseason, but it was good weight. And there was one play, like I think he chased down somebody on the opposite sideline. And so he's one that can kind of get east to west as well. And I think if Jerron Willis can really take his game to another level, that's going to make it to where it's a deep overall linebacker room, because those freshmen there, they're going to be maybe good players in the future, but those guys continue to come along. And Josh Smith, he's good. Tayshawn Alston, Donovan Darn's one that maybe he could play that Fred Johnson type of role as well. So it's overall a deep room, and you're just going to have to get over maybe not having the experience factor that you had last year, but I think they're maybe just as fast as what those guys were last year.
I don't remember who I heard it from. It was somebody credible. I mean, because I took note of it. It said AJ Holloway from Buford.
Yeah.
As a true freshman linebacker, looking awfully solid.
Yeah, he's a big dude. Like he and Tayshawn Alston kind of fit that maybe like Mike linebacker type of guy that's just big physical guy that can play on the interior and get to the run. But I thought Holloway also has decent speed as well to get east and west as well. So it's an intriguing room because you got some of the older guys like Justin is not an older guy, but guys who have a little bit of college experience. But then you got all those freshmen in there who it just seems like it's a bright future in that room.
I love Justin O. I may not be right about him starting because I think Sean Murphy's playing pretty well and he's older. And then you mentioned Willis, and you only have 2 spots, right? There's only 2 linebackers that play. Yeah. I think this at the very least, though, when they go to the 3-man front, which with this group, whether or not I think that's a good idea, honestly, depends on how they play Dylan Stewart. I don't think you slide him inside as a 3, unless it's maybe a obvious passing down or something. But Bam Martin Scott, when they went to that, was a third linebacker basically, and came off the edge. He was a pass rusher basically, like Alabama calls it the jack linebacker in their 3-man front. Jerron Willis, I've said this before, if you remember the A&M game back in 23, where they decided to employ this defense, Willis was rotating with Bam Martin Scott and played well, I thought. And then in the spring game the other night, you saw, I think he's got, just like BMS, BMS is not a good nickname for him. That sounds like some kind of bowel movement syndrome or something. Body mass super flex. I don't know. But Bam Martin Scott, he's got that same kind of skill set, in my opinion. And he showed that the other night. So I think at the very least, he plays that role in a 3-man front. This is kind of a crazy glue sniffer idea, because I don't know that they'll do it, because I thought maybe you could play George Wilson at linebacker, but it looks like he is an edge. 255 pounds, Jerron Willis. What's the difference between him and Brian Thomas Jr. at edge?
Yeah. Like maybe in some of those like obvious pass down situations, put him alongside Dylan Stewart, where teams aren't going to be able to really fully get after or double team Dylan Stewart. That could be something they look at. That'd be pretty intriguing. I think he's at 255 right now is what he's, I can look that up, but I mean,
it is 255.
255. Yeah. Like, so that could be something they do. And I thought speed wise, I thought that was something that I saw from him the other night as well, that he hadn't lost too much of it, gaining that 255.
That's awesome. So he weighs as much as Dez. Dez is just 4 inches taller. Arms are probably a little longer too, I would think. I've always liked Jerron Willis. I think he came in as a redshirt freshman 2 years ago, and was really not a guy that I think they signed him because they liked him out of high school and we're going to develop him. So I would love to see him come on, because that's kind of a forgotten man. Speaking of forgotten men, so Zabari Sandy, I think, is probably the one player on the roster. Like let's say you had to name the whole defensive back room, no walk-ons, but scholarship guys. I think Zabari Sandy would be the guy people always forgot, because number one, he committed super early. Just like people forgot about Brian Rowe until they didn't. Early commits, they kind of go away. So Washington, D.C. Then he blew out his knee last year and couldn't play. Now he's back. Your thoughts on Sandy? I know he's working at the nickel position. Do you see anything out of him at all that you can discuss?
Yeah, he's one that's kind of what I was going to mention about, is maybe a little bit of forgotten man in that secondary, and had the injury last year, but a guy that I think can compete and be a solid, maybe a guy coming off the bench guy for them. And that nickel spot's interesting because there's, and obviously Jalen Kilgore is going to get the start there, or at least that's where he was in spring practice. But I mean, Sandy could be a guy that I think come in, and I think it's just him taking that next step that he would have taken last year, but before the injury. And I think that's something that, that he can, Torian Gray has helped guys take that big year 1 to year 2 jump. But I thought he had his moments in that spring game, and we'll see kind of where he fits in there. But they got so many different options at each of those secondary spots that they can be so flexible with. It's pretty incredible what they built back there in the secondary.
I mean, when Vakari Swain comes back, I'm like, well, Cisse was really, really good. So what do you do? I mean, what would you do, Alex?
I mean, I guess I would move Cisse to nickel and Jalen Kilgore back to safety, but I don't think that's going to be what's happening, at least at the start. I think they're going to keep Kilgore at nickel, which I understand just because he was so good there last year and made so many plays there. And that nickel spot is so important in Clayton White's defense. And Kilgore can really kind of do it both. He can play the run and play the pass. And so I understand them keeping him there. But I think we've talked about it here before. Like, I think one thing they really could do is, like, in this obvious passing down situations, move Kilgore back to that safety spot, move Cisse into that nickel, or Vakari Swain into that nickel spot, and then you've got 5 true cover kind of guys out there for those true passing down situations, and let DQ Smith, who kind of showed that in that free roaming kind of free safety thing, can make some interceptions like he did in the spring game, and just let him kind of read the offense and then go where he needed to go.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Getting all 3 of those guys on the field, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. For sure. Jalen Kilgore played so many snaps last year. I mean, you have the luxury now of getting him some rest, so he's fresh. I mean, that's he played a ton of snaps. I mean, he's all over the place. Really, really good player. The queen of the Cox in the Net Sports Chat box. I don't care. Just put Swain on the field. Put him on the field. Hey, I don't think it's a given that he starts. Cisse could beat him out at corner. I don't. I think it'll be Swain, but I don't know.
Yeah, for Swain and Cisse, you can argue for both of those guys that are going to be too good to keep off the field, but they're both going to be in that same spot. So, I mean, there's going to be depth there, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of works out. But I think Cisse had a really good spring to kind of build on what he did at NC State.
Peyton Williams had a really good spring too.
Yeah, he makes plays.
Most improved guy back there. So, and Jamie Bradford says DQ Smith's his breakout player selection. Hey, I'm all for it. The more it's interesting when you get good feedback about each spot for people you trust, and you just kind of check it off. Eventually, you're going to check off 22, and you're going to be good to go. That's the games we play in the off season, my friend.
Right.
Alex, thanks for spending time with us today, buddy. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you and your work and you coming on with us. I thoroughly enjoy it when you come on the show with us and we can talk a little ball.
Yeah, man.
All kinds of ball. And certainly keep up the good work, and we'll holla at you soon, my friend.
Appreciate you having me on. Always enjoy it.
Thanks, Alex. Alex Jones at BigSpur.com, the late